seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, here we go again. It is another Friday night, so you know what that means, folks. It means that the Bustalgia Boise bus is rolled up to the bus stop. So come aboard. We're going on a little time travel again. We're going back to the year 2001 for Martin O'Neill's second season in charge at Celtic. Because yes, once again, folks, we are continuing it on because this is indeed Martin O'Neill month.
Yes!
Part 2 of 5. Yes, so a lot on the agenda tonight. Obviously, it'll be his first Champions League campaign, Celtic's first Champions League campaign, if you want to call it that. If you want to be technical about it, because the European Cup changed to the Champions League. So it's the first time in the group stages. A lot to talk about, a lot of parallels we can draw between current day Celtic. So there may be some debate about that to come. We do love a bit of debate on the show. And the man who loves debate more than any is a guy to my side here, Russell Boyce. How the devil are you, mate?
Good, Phil. It's good. Martin O'Neill month's the best month ever. It feels like Christmas. Honestly, it does. Like, I'm buzzing, man. Like, Bustalgia have kind of left you to it, Phil. And now I feel like I'm getting to be like the third co-pilot with you and Liam now because it's Martin O'Neill month. I ain't missing Martin O'Neill month ever.
Al Pacino and Godfather 3, just when you thought you were out, I pulled you back in.
Pulled me back in. Good to be back, mate. Love it.
And of course, Canada's favourite Tim, Liam Greenlaw, mate, with the Mountie hat on as well. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing brilliant. We always get our man. Good. Nice sunny day. I'm working at the studio today, so
class.
Change your scenery.
Before we came on there, like Liam done the sort of part with the camera going round the room by. I saw the streets outside there, the lovely streets of Vancouver. Looking good, very lovely day, mate. Very lovely compared to the weather here anyway. Absolutely.
I'll show you in 10 minutes when all the junkies are
out. That's a bit I didn't see, right? Okay.
Blame Canada. Blame Canada.
Vancouver tourism yet, but
they hide it very well by the looks of it for the view you've got out the window. But gentlemen, before we get started, as always, as a designated driver, I will remind everyone now about all of the good stuff that I like you to do. So yeah, if you'd like to subscribe, that'd be much appreciated. Dropping a like on the video, that's also very much appreciated. And of course, always get involved in our live comments as well and the comments below the video. Because again, it's all good stuff, man, when it's a live, any sort of interaction. So YouTube absolutely love it. And of course, if you want to share it on your social medias to spread the word, if you want to tell your neighbours about it, even if they're Rangers fans, tell them too. Tell your family, tell everybody about the Boise bus. Tell them Phil sent you. But yeah, we would like all that because I say it's all that good stuff. It keeps the channel flowing nicely, keeps the algorithm up. So it's always much appreciated,
Keeps it
guys.
growing, mate. You know it.
It does, mate. It does.
We're 112 away for 3,000, Phil. Subs.
Oh, there you go. That's the next milestone. So there you go. 112. That's the target. Come on.
I know, and it'll be a year. It'll be a year. The first show was the 6th of December. So we've got like, I don't know, 6-7 weeks. It'd be nice to hit 3,000. You know what I mean? Like to mark the 1 year. That would be quite cool to go 1 year, 3,000 subs, baby. That'd be all right. Eh?
There you go, passengers of the bus. You know your mission. You need to spread the word. You get the word out there about the Boise bus. 3,000 to target by the end of the year. Can we do it? The challenge has been laid down by the main man himself. So there we go. Now, Jen, speaking of challenge, and I like to lay down a challenge at the start of Bustalgia every week. Oh, no, trivia question. But you can't escape my trivia questions right now, mate.
I love it.
The week is bookended on a Monday. There's one new, and there's a Friday on as well. So, yeah.
I know. I'm a glutton for punishment, Phil. It's the story of my life. That's why I drink all the time.
you love it, mate. You love the trivia, mate.
I wake up hungover. I'm like, oh, God, why do I love this so much? I'm a glutton for punishment, man.
This for you, mate. It doesn't stop.
I know. Oh, no. I've made my bed. I made my bed a long time ago. I'm very much lying in it now.
He's just a burnt, crispy box spring at this point.
Well, hopefully this question tonight, Russell, doesn't turn you to any drink, man. It's not too bad a question, but it's one you need to listen to the particulars of the question because it can throw you off here. Okay. So, related to a player that Celtic signed this season, we're now going to talk about, it's related to Bobo Baldé, right? So Celtic signed Bobo Baldé this season from Toulouse FC. However, can you name all the other first-team players Celtic have signed directly from French League football? There are 7 other answers.
Does that include loans?
Includes loans, yes. And there are 7 answers.
That's good. I got a few.
Okay, Doc.
Not
too bad. But yeah, keep in mind what I said. It's from the French league. It doesn't necessarily mean a French player. So there's a clue right there.
I think I've got right. I'm turning the comments off now as well. But I think I've got 3 already, mate.
There we go.
And that's without even trying. I think I've got 3.
Good stuff. Off to a flyer, mate. Off to a flyer. But
wonder if we have the same 3.
We'll be scratching our brain at midnight tonight looking for the other 4, Liam. You know how it goes.
But as usual, we will always visit the answers at the end of the show. But that's just we brain teaser to get everybody started tonight. But yeah, let's get going, guys. Because funny enough, this is not a year that we have landed in yet in Bustalgia. We seem to have landed in the year 2000 3 times already. But no, this is obviously 2001. We're going to a year later, so the summer. So let's take a look at some of the big winners, as we always do, the football winners. And amazingly, incredibly, neither Seville or Real Madrid, one of the big European trophies. Astounding. Yeah, but there was a Spanish team in both finals, but they came up short. The Champions League was won by Bayern Munich. They defeated Valencia in the final after a 1-1 draw on a penalty shootout. Valencia, of course, had 2 Champions League finals on the bounce after coming from effectively nowhere. Surprised everybody, but got to back-to-back finals. But after this, they kind of got pillaged a wee bit in terms of their players. In particular, Mendieta leaves after this, going into this transfer window. But they do end up winning the UEFA Cup in a few years' time under Rafa Benitez, so they rebuild pretty quickly. But yeah, a lot of their big stars like Keely Gonzalez, Mendieta, Claudio Lopez, they're all starting to get taken away from the club. But speaking of Valencia, we will be talking to them tonight because we will cross their path at some point during this season. And the UEFA Cup final was an absolute humdinger. It was 5-4. It ended to Liverpool. The Liverpool won 3 trophies this season. UEFA Cup
scoring goals, that team, eh?
Oh, very good. This is the Michael Owen Ballon d'Or team. I
just mean Liverpool in general these days.
Yeah. Obviously
goals, don't you?
Most definitely. I Mo Salah did through the week, but yeah, this Liverpool team in particular is the Michael Owen Ballon d'Or winning led Liverpool because he wins the Ballon d'Or at the end of 2001. But yeah, they won the UEFA Cup beating Alaves 5-4. One of Alaves' goals was scored by Jordi Cruyff. Remember him? Johan's son that played for Man U and never really amounted to much. But yeah, he scores the equaliser to take it to extra time. And I believe it's a Gary McAllister free kick that's deflected into the net that wins it for Liverpool late on. I'm pretty sure it's a free kick from out wide. and he bends it in, and the defender sort of glances off the defender into the net. But Liverpool win it on a golden goal, 5-4. It was about 116th minute that they won it. And now in England, Man United once again won the Premier League. This is back at the time when Man U used to actually win lots and lots of trophies. And as I say, the FA Cup, it was Michael Owen's Liverpool. He scored 2 goals very late on to beat Arsenal, who dominated the game for the most part in Cardiff. But they fell apart near the end, and Owen scored 2 goals to seal the trophy for Liverpool. And of course, they did win the League Cup. So they won a unique treble that season. Of course, Man U a few seasons before won a treble, so Liverpool got a UEFA Cup, FA Cup, and League Cup. In 2001, they beat Birmingham City on a penalty shootout after a 1-1 draw. And of course, these 2 finals are unique because they were the first ones held at the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff, because Wembley was now getting demolished and getting rebuilt. It began the 2000 ones were the last finals there. So now they've got 4 or 5 years coming up at Cardiff. They kicked off with Liverpool winning both trophies that season in the finals. As we talked about last week, though, in Scotland, we won everything. We won it all. We won the league, we won the League Cup, and we won the Scottish Cup. So we covered that episode last week. Want to go back to listen at any point? You can indeed. As for the other big leagues around the continent, Real Madrid picked up the title in Spain. It was Roma who won the title in Italy. Gabriel Batistuta, of course, we talked about him last week. He signed at the ripe old age of 32 years old. Do you believe it is, Russell, that he went to Roma?
32, went to Roma, £22 million.
Yeah, and then it was him, I believe, Montella, Totti, Del Vecchio. That was like the fourth line. I'm sure Capello.
Do you know Del Vecchio was linked with Celtic?
I
remember reading it on teletext. I can still remember.
Teletext, yes.
I was obsessed with that, man.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
teletext, CFAX, whatever it may have been. That was the internet, though, basically back
that
then.
was, yeah. That's where you got your rumours from. Yeah, on teletext, CFAX.
And it updated regularly through the day. I mean, folk will find that of a certain vintage, a younger vintage, than us find that hard to leave. But generally, which is funny because they've never really mastered the internet on your TV since. It's been an easy thing. You can't go on an internet browser now. And go on BBC Sport easily on your remote. You get teletext, it's on the adverts. You just hit the teletext button. There it is, refreshed. Your homepage, if you like, sports headlines, 401. Here we go. And it updated constantly through the day. And it would have all your transfer rumours. You had a Scottish football button where you could go in there. And I'm amazed they've not managed to quite work that out on your TV yet. You know, because if you were to try to read sports stuff, you need to go to your phone. Can't do it on the telly.
They've maybe had the live scores as well on the Saturday, and then you could book your holidays and stuff on it as well. They sold holidays on teletext. Oh man,
don't forget Bamboozle.
Bamboozle, yeah, that's right. Aye. Oh God.
Game. What a game.
Well,
talking about Bamboozled, Phil, I think I've done your thing already.
Oh, good, mate. Good. Well, we'll keep it to the end, mate. We'll keep it to the end. But
Record-breaking, mate. What I've done. Record-breaking, mate. Record-breaking.
Mate.
That's 13 minutes into the show, mate.
Okay, we'll put that to the test at the end. I'm looking forward to that one already. But yeah, where was it? Roma, they won in Italy. Germany, of course, it was Bayern Munich. Of course it was. In France and Portugal, though, there was a bit of an oddity, mate. In Portugal, it was Boa Vista won the title. They were going to cross paths with them very, very soon. Isn't that interesting? Because in Portugal, it's literally either Benfica, Porto, or Sporting Lisbon have won every title apart from 2. Boa Vista have won 1, and there's another team way back in like the 50s that won 1. But it's very much the same 3 teams the entire time. But yeah, 2001 was Boa Vista. They're going to cross our paths very soon. We'll also be talking about them next week in the Seville show. So they are about to go into Celtic.
Too much for me to take. Too much for me to take.
And the team that won it in France was it's not PSG, it's not Monaco, it's not even Marseille. It was FC Nantes that won the title in France. Now, the Russell's favourite part of the show. Top 10 transfers of the summer with 2022 prices, because transfer market feel the need to put 22 prices next to the inflation. It's like, leave it as it was.
Frustrates me.
It really annoys me now.
I can remember quite a lot of the fees, though. I remember at the time quite a lot of the fees.
Aye. So the disclaimer is the 10 players are in the correct order, but yeah, the prices that Transfer Market have got on their website for some reason have inflation that brings it up to 2022 prices. But anyway, the number 10 most expensive transfer that summer was Van Nistelrooy going from PSV to Man United. They've got it to this 25.6 million.
19.5 million. Guaranteed.
I 100% believe you, mate. So I worked out last week what they've been doing.
19 and a half.
19 and a half.
I
What?
remember it because I just remember, like, it's not like I'm trying to work out a calculation. I just remember seeing it. Do you remember in the wee sidebar on Sky Sports News?
Mm-hmm.
That was such a big thing then, like all the ins and out. 19.5, but positive.
I mean, this was a year late, this transfer, because he was meant to sign in the summer of 2000, but broke down live on TV at a training session. Sky Sports were filming him because this is the new guy that Man United decided he's breaking all these records in Holland, and he literally damaged his cruciate ligaments at a training session live on Sky Sports cameras. Insane.
That is unbelievable, though. Do you know what I mean? Because this is just the hype to go. There he is training. He's about to become a Man U player, and as they're filming Liam, he breaks down and damaged cruciate.
Out for a year.
Never seen that, but that's brilliant.
Insane. The thing is, a bit like Larson, a bad injury, but comes back a year later, and Van Nistelrooy was unfucking believable in that Man United team for the next few years. Unbelievable player. Top penalty box striker. Very rarely scored from outside the box. If he even did score from outside the box, but insane player. Number 9 is an interesting one because I think he only retired in like the last 2 or 3 years, so he must be very, very young at this point. Antonio Cassano. 1983. I was about to come at you, Russell, and say, what year was he born?
He'd been 18.
18, aye. So he's Antonio Cassano went from Bari to Roma, 27.9 million they're saying, but again, that's inflated. Javier Saviola, River Plate to Barcelona, another player that will be crossing our paths in the near future because when we get to the 03-04 season, we talk about that win over Barca in the UEFA Cup. Saviola had a starting role that night, getting himself sent off. He was one of the ones that got sent off. Him, Thiago Motta, and Robert Douglas all got sent off.
Kicked Alan Thompson.
I
mind it.
Aye, so Saviola, he's about to play a part in Celtic's near future in a couple of years. Filippo Inzaghi went from Juventus to AC Milan. Talk about goal poachers with Van Nistelrooy. Jesus Christ, Inzaghi. Again, they've got 32.5 million. No, it wasn't.
22 at the time. Remember when Inzaghi, just to interject, I've got to say when his name comes up, Ferguson's quote, people Inzaghi was born offside.
Yeah.
I thought that was fucking... And he said it after the game, so like deadpan. You know what I mean? He's not even joking. He's like, he was born offside. I was like, that is good part.
He's another one where if you watch the goal compilation it has on YouTube, you're not going to see many spectacular goals, just the definition of a tap-in merchant, but he was always in the right place at the right time.
Scuffs as well. Loads of scuffs.
Loads of scuffs. And a guy that scores a few against us over the next few years. But he ends up playing quite late into his career as well, because he's at AC Milan pretty much now till the end of his career, because that's 2008.
I think he played it for them up till.
Mental.
But if you don't run about and you're just in the right place at the right time and you've got that instinct, he's like, plenty olive oil in me, pal. I'm all right. Like, I'm good to go. He was I think Inzaghi, though, was one of those players you would never see nowadays. I think the closest thing to him in the modern day equivalent is Edin Dzeko. I don't know if you've seen him. He used to play for Man City in his 20s. He's now 35, 36. He just signed for Inter Milan this summer. He's their number 1 striker.
I was at Roma and then Inter, and he's
doesn't move. Just knows where the back of the net is. He's as close as I can think of as a modern example. I find it refreshing that you get players still that you're not just analysing the kilometres they've run, Liam, you know? You're analysing, what do? Do they put the ball in the fucking net or not? I like that.
I think more and more players playing older like that. Look at Ibrahimovic, he's still playing, but I think with nutrition and all that and sports science, there's this whole thing that, you're done at 35 or 32 or whatever. There's guys that are machines that really start developing in their 30s. You see it in Ironmans and stuff like that. It's no young guys that win it. It's guys in their 30s. So, I don't know, maybe we'll start seeing some older players.
Another thing that's interesting about that, slightly off-piste, but we don't mind that.
Oh, we don't mind.
Joe Joyce just done, the boxer. He beat Joseph Parker a couple of weeks ago. He's 37, and he's entering, they reckon, the best. Like, they've never seen him as good as this. But apparently one of the reasons that he's called the juggernaut, because he keeps being able to take punches, is your bone density as you get older gets a lot heavier and stronger. So your bone... This is mad. Like, I was listening to it going, what? And they went, that's part of the reason he's almost unshakable is because he's still trained properly, but his bone density means that he's actually stronger than he's ever been. So I think you look at the Zlatan comparison, I don't know how the fuck we're talking about him now, but in fact, he does crop up because he's in the Ajax squad in the Champions League qualifier. But bone density, I think Zlatan did become harder as he got older. I think he did become a stronger player. I wonder if it's that bone density.
Well, there's a connection to all these players that we're talking about. Italian football. Antonio Cassano, we've mentioned already, he played till he's quite late in his career.
Yes.
Inzaghi. You're talking about Zlatan. Dzeko right now, again, there's something about Italian football, and this isn't a thing that's only in recent years. Even going back to the 90s, players in Italian football seem to play a lot longer. Must be that diet, must be that olive oil, as you say, mate.
All that olive oil, all that good stuff, Phil.
All that good stuff, mate. But continuing the list, one of the best right-backs I have saw in person, and it was in a friendly game. We played Parma in a friendly in 97, and I was at it, Lilian Thuram. I'd never seen a marauding fullback getting forward the way he did, and I was like, this guy's unbelievable. But yeah, he transfers from Parma to Juventus this summer for, again, they're saying 32.5 million. Again, the 2022 prices. Rui Costa, Fiorentina, AC Milan, 37.1 million. Juan Sebastian Veron, Lazio to Man United, 38.3 million. God, it's all Italian football at the moment. Italian football's dominating this list because after Lazio sell Veron, they replace him with Gaisca Mendieta. Valencia to Lazio for 43.2 million. Gianluigi Buffon becomes the most expensive goalkeeper in the world at that time, from Parma to Juventus, 47.6, and the number one most expensive transfer in the world, and it stayed the world record for a few years after this. Defeating Figo's one the year before is Zidane. Now they've got it in 2022 price. It works out 69.7 million.
48.
Yes.
I know it for a fact. I remember it. 48 million. But the thing was with that, Zidane was 29.
Oh, worth it though, mate.
But, well, this is it. But it's when you sign the player and you just go, which, funnily enough, talk about the era we are, you go, it's not about the resale value, it's about what he's going to bring for the next 3-4 years.
Yes.
It's guaranteed quality. And that is, they signed him 48 million, not on a whim or a prayer, but going, I know the trophies that then come with him. I know what he's going to bring to the team. Don't even think about trying to resell him or any of that resale value bullshit. It's not there. This is just a sign-in to be now the hallmark of our team for the next 4 or 5 years. Done. And it made sense. And it proved to be a brilliant move.
Yeah, because this coming season, the 2002 final is at Hampden, and Zidane scores that volley. Yes, indeed, against Bayer Leverkusen. But yeah, we'll move on now to some just pop culture, some music and film-related stories, and obviously we look at the festivals as well. So number one, when the season kicks off this year, and it's 28th of July 2001, Robbie Williams was number one in the singles chart, Destiny's Child were number one in the albums chart, and the number one film at the box office, which surprised me because it's fucking rubbish, Jurassic Park 3 was number one at the box office at the time. Don't see it, just don't bother. It's terrible.
I didn't even know there was one. I knew there was new ones. I never knew there was a 3.
The original Jurassic Park series in the 90s, there was 3 films made there, and then they rebooted it with Jurassic World, although it's all in the same timeline, so it does actually follow on. So there's now, I think, 6 films in it, but yeah, they just get progressively worse as you go on. If you're going to watch any Jurassic Park film, watch the very first one from 93. It's a good one, but Jurassic Park 3
I can't even hear that Robbie Williams song in my head. The Road to Mandalay.
It was number one in the chart when I looked up the singles chart one, and I was like,
no, because I like Robbie Williams, but normally you'd be able to, you could hear the song.
This is still at a time when I was still paying attention to the charts, but apparently this was number one. Tea in the Park this year was headlined by Stereophonics in Texas on the main stages on the Saturday and Sunday, and some other big acts to appear were David Gray, Coldplay, Beck, Top Loader, Placebo, Muse, The Strokes, Catatonia, Paul Weller, there he is again, Paul Weller, synonymous with Bustalgia, and the Proclaimers. Now, Glastonbury 2001, nobody appeared because Glastonbury didn't happen in 2001. There was a legal dispute going on with the organiser, Michael Eavis, over the licence of the show. So that year, they skipped it. It went from 2000 to 2002, and I went and looked up the lineup. So there's a couple of years where Glasgow doesn't happen. I think they tried to
sometimes to protect the field, don't they?
Yeah, but this is for different reasons. This is because there was some sort of legal dispute going on over the licensing. So, yeah.
Do you remember that, Leo?
Aye.
I don't remember that at all.
I mean, it wasn't as big a thing back then as what it is now. So you're missing it. It wasn't like one of these things that was top of everybody's radar. I mean, especially being over here. I remember they would bring out the double CD and stuff like that, but You know, there was nobody recording it for YouTube or anything like that. So it didn't have nearly the appeal as what it does now. Now Glastonbury's like, you know, Eurovision Song Contest, almost like, you know, it's like the world watches it, you know.
I think you're right. I feel the same as well. Like years ago, I don't remember Glastonbury being like the juggernaut it is now. Like people didn't make a huge deal out of it back in the early 2000s, but nowadays it's like everyone's got to catch somebody's set at Glastonbury. It's like everyone must watch TV. Mental, man.
If you watched that thing on Netflix, Trainwreck, about the what was it, the Woodstock 2? See,
Woodstock 99.
Aye, so the whole perception of like live events and big scale events all sort of changed for that as well, because it started getting completely out of control. And so there were people a bit more hesitant to put that stuff on. So there was a wee bit of sparring works at that time. But I mean, Glastonbury, Nebworth, all that, it wasn't as big in the North American calendar as what it is now. Now you generally see all that stuff now, you know.
That's interesting.
Aye, but see, this is a year that Glasgow had a year off, but for not the reasons you think, where they'll try to protect the field. No, there was some sort of legal dispute going on. So yeah, nothing to talk about with Glasgow then. Just some trees in a field. That was essentially it. But in terms of news stories for the summer of 2001, I mean, unless you're living under a rock, everyone knows the big news story in the summer of 2001. That's the year, of course, of the September 11th terrorist attacks. We actually talked about that on we did the World Cup 2002 one, because obviously we jumped from Euro 2000 to World Cup 2002. That was a big event that happened in between. But yeah, everybody knows obviously went on. 2,996 people lost their lives that day. On the World Trade Center attacks, the Pentagon, another plane came down in the field in Pennsylvania. But to this day, I said at the time we talked about it in the World Cup episode we did, to this day, you're still feeling aftershocks from it. There's still things going on in culture that go back to that point in time of the events of that day. But yeah, that was a big story. And as it actually turned out, this actually had a small effect on our season, because we were meant to be playing our first Champions League game either the night of it happened or the next night. But either way, we got a fixture move. We were meant to start our campaign with Rosenborg at home, and it got moved back. And we actually started a couple weeks later away to Juventus, which we'll be talking about, because yeah, when you talk about iconic games during Martin O'Neill's tenure, the away trip to Juventus extraordinary. Shocking.
It keeps culling the arse when he says extraordinary. That's what I love O'Neill. He is the man.
He is indeed. So we will now go into a little pre-season roundup and see what Celtic were doing heading into the season.
Also, just quickly, by the way, the best game of all time was released in the October. Championship Manager 2001.
Oh, yeah. I've been talking about an actual football game, and I was like,
life, mate. I've played it for 20 years since.
Of course it was. That is massive pop culture. Yeah.
That is. I think it is. I mean, at that point as well, if you actually look at games from that era, it was getting sponsors at England games and that.
That's right.
It was like a sponsorable Championship Manager, and the slogan they used for 2001-2002 was, "It's the most important game of your life." Right, telling that to a 13-year-old me, I'm like, he's fucking right, by the way. I'm like, Mum's like, what's he doing cutting about a shirt and tie? I'm like, Scottish Cup final, you idiot. I'm like, what are you talking about? Gotta get the hoops to glory here.
Suit up for the final. Taribo West, the free transfer that everybody signed on the first day. Always got to sign Taribo West. Always. Even I put him on the thumbnail that we've now got on the channel for your Championship Manager. I was like, what image can I use from Champ Manager 0102 for this screen grab? And I was like, Taribo West profile, of course, because he is synonymous with Champ Manager 0102.
Yes.
Now, of course, Russell, you're all about ages and date of births. Is Taribo West legitimately the age that he is in Champ Manager 102?
No, I think there's a. Well, I think they thought that. I think that was his declared age.
Yeah.
But then there's stories that have came out since that he played for Derby County, I think, in 2006.
Yep.
So on theory, Liam Wright is 32, Taribo West, but the reckoning was like 39, 40. I think
it was a series of African players that did something.
Particularly the Nigerians, I'm sure, because was it Saudi Arabia? Who was it Scotland played?
Saudi Arabia.
Scotland played, was it a World Youth Final?
Under 16s World Cup final.
World Cup final, under 16s, and they reckon like that whole team it was just men. Do you know what I mean? They were playing against. That's mad, eh?
Aye, they're cutting about like mustaches and like full beards and stuff, and it's like you're meant to be under 16. What the hell? Aye, so it was
someone as old as 21, 22.
Aye. And Canu's the other one.
Aye, Canu.
They reckon Canu,
definitely
right under your nose at like a huge club like Arsenal, you know, and they reckon he was like fucking 5-6 years older than what his declared age was. I mean, that's mad. If even the balls in it.
I do it all the time, though.
Well, here's the thing to look at it, right? And one of the arguments that come from this: if these players were indeed illegal ages, right? They were the wrong age; they were much older. One of the things that this Nigeria team, this era, are synonymous for is when they won the Olympic gold tournament in 1996, the Olympic football tournament. Now, the rules of the Olympic tournament is you can have 3 players over 23 and everyone else needs to be under 23. And that team had Kanu, Taribo West, Celestine Babayaro, JJ Akocha. And it's like, you know, did the Olympic Committee do their due diligence there? Were they all really under 23?
Then they've carried on with their career with that under 23 data.
Was that no Edward? Edward was always playing for under 23 for about 6 years, wasn't he?
I felt like it. Aye.
But that is true as well. That is true. Yep. It was like, remember we used to boast about Eddie being the top ever France under 21 scorer. We've got Francis. I was like, wait, Eddie's with 23 now. So that is weird.
And Patrick Gold, yes, they did beat Brazil. Ronaldo was playing for Brazil. They beat them 4-3 in the semi-final, then beat Argentina in the final. So this Nigeria team are synonymous for that Olympic gold win. But when we talk about the ages, a bit dodgy, but it's one of these things that will never ever get proven and investigated. But, you know, if I give it that one. But yeah, that was how did we get on? Champ Manager 0102. That's how we got into Taribo West.
We can move on for that.
But yeah, the short story is this, guys. Champ Manager 102 is legendary if you never ever played it.
The cult game at that time. It really was.
It's the best. It's the absolute best of the series. But yeah, preseason roundup, guys. So obviously Celtic have won the treble. Here's a chance to strengthen from a position of strength. So what did we do that summer? What did we go out and buy? Well, this summer, there's a very famous image that many fans, they always envision in their head. It's the triple signing, the day when 3 players were unveiled at the same time. And the 3 players in question were John Hartson, Momo Silla, and Steve Guppy. Of course, they say the famous image is Martin O'Neill standing with the 3 of them at Celtic Park. And I think that was the only time that happened until last year when Carter Vickers, Jota, Giakoumakis were all unveiled on the same day at Lennoxtown, wasn't it? It's very rare, Russell, to see a triple signing at Celtic. Very rare.
I also wonder if there was a Boise bus, shall we say, at that time, right? How underwhelmed or how much I'd be ranting and raving on a Monday club or whatever it may have been that we're signing guys for St Johnstone, we're signing O'Neill's pal. Sound familiar?
Oh, yeah.
Steve Guppy at 32 years old. And you know, that arsehole John Hartson, who, let's be honest, we all kind of regarded up here as a bit of an arsehole at that time because of he kung fu kicked Berkovic. He had a notorious reputation for being a hothead. And I just wonder if we would be saying, if Celtic really tooled up Martin O'Neill after what he achieved last year, the points turnaround was 37 points. Is that tooling him up? I wonder if that would be me back then. Probably, to be honest. I think probably.
Well, funny enough, when we do get on to one of the top points later, there is a thing about if social media was around back then, because one of the things that I looked at regarding one of those signings staggered me because I forgot about one of their stats in particular. But we'll get on to that soon. But Liam, of course, another man that we signed that summer. I thought we paid a fee for this guy. Apparently, it was a free transfer, according to Wikipedia. I'm not sure. I thought we paid money for Bobo Baldi, but cult hero to say the least. Aye, on Wiki it says free transfer, and I was like, I'm sure we paid something for him. But either way, Bobo Baldi arrived that summer. So Liam, cult hero to say the least.
Oh my God! Almost immediately. I was playing in a 5-a-side teams that wore the hoops, and I remember it was like, after his first game, somebody in the shout line shouting, "Bobo's going to get you," and just having a laugh with it, like it just took off. And you know, remember going back to Scotland, so I'm getting a took with Bobo's going to get you on a. He just became a cult hero right away, I think, because just the stature, it was no nonsense, and it was like the first couple of tackles, it was up there with Mjällby. Mjällby had a similar start with a couple of big crunching tackles, and we go, oh, we've got our boy here, right? And then we saw Bobo coming in, and it was pure excitement. I think he lived up to the hype. You know, it's good because we developed hype around him, and he responded, and I love that in a player.
He didn't quite arrive in the summer though, did he? Was he not more?
No, it wasn't. It was in the sort of summertime that we got him, maybe like August. Maybe the season might have kicked off by him because this season does take off in July. So
I did my homework, Phil.
Mm-hmm.
I did as much of the homework as I could. I was engrossed in the video playlist you sent last night, and he doesn't feature till mid-September.
But remember September 11, we took a week. There was no games for about a week or so.
No, there's games. There's games. I'm talking about Olivier Tabile starting these games. Tom Boyd starting these games. So that's, but only because I watched this last night. By the way, I know this. This is not me pulling memories out my hat, because I would have went with. Well, that's when Baldi, Valhara, and Mjällby they started every game. Actually, that season it was Tabie, and then Tom Boyd's plucked for thin air to play against Ajax for experience. Tabie must have hurt his feelings, but he's still, even after that, you see Tabile starting games. So it's right into late September before Bobo makes his debut. I only know this from watching those videos you sent me. Because I could have sworn the other way around. I could have sworn.
I think Tabile is responsible for the nickname Bomb Scare. That was the first time.
He was.
It was Olivier Tabile.
But honestly, see, when I'm watching these highlight reels, Liam, I think he looks all right. Honestly, I'm like, and I'm of your memory. I'm going, he was a bomb scare. You're watching him play, and I'm like, he fucking Olivier looks all right at the ball.
I remember going to a friendly between Celtic and Leeds at Celtic Park, and Tabile scored a ridiculous own goal, not even into the right net. He seems to like scissor kick it into his own net. Like he goes up for a cross and completely scuffs it right past maybe Jonathan Gould or Dimitri Karin in goal. But it was like, that was a bloody own goal put in the wrong net. But yeah, it was
by the way though, Premier League career till he was about 33, 34 English Premier League.
Mental, isn't it?
Birmingham City. And by the way, when Birmingham peaked under Steve Bruce, finishing top 10 finishes with David Dunn pulling the strings, Tabile was the centre back. Funny that, eh?
Is that the Birmingham team that had?
That he would have went on to that, eh?
Is that the one that had Mikkel Forsell as their main striker up front?
Mikkel Forsell, Christophe Dugarry for a wee brief spell.
Yeah, man.
But Olivier Tabile was that was his main man at the back. Well, one of his big centre halves. I think it was him and the Irish boy. Oh, what was he called? He played for Wimbledon. Kevin Cunningham. I'm sure his name was. But Tabile. Some fucking memory.
Mate, that's why you're on, mate. That's why you're on. You take us back to this period. You're the champ manager, like, you know, you're the guru. So you can go right back to this season and this time and tell us all these things just like that. No problem.
The Tabile one is interesting what he went on to. But I would never have thought he played a minute, Phil, if I'm honest to you.
Yeah.
I thought Baldi started that season, but believe it or not, he did not. There was plenty of football played without him.
I think it's answered here as to one of the reasons why Tabile and Boyd not had to come in, because Alan Stubbs departed the club in the summer. He went to Everton on a free transfer. Also, a guy we talked about last week, Tommy Johnson, with his silly celebrations. The goal-winning hero and League Cup winning hero of a couple of years before. Yeah, he was let go on a free transfer to Sheffield Wednesday. Stefan Mahe, he was released. He went to Hearts for nothing. A lot of free transfers here. Mark Butchell was sold, however, to Portsmouth for £1 million. Eyal Berkovic is a torrid time at Celtic came to an end. He went to Manchester City for £1.5 million. So that was who was going out. But yeah, coming in the end, it was just Hartson, Guppy, Silla, and Baldi. So, guys, question I'll just ask the two of you, straight up answer. Do you think that was strengthening from a position of strength? It eventually doesn't look like it, but obviously it worked out okay in the end. But try and put yourself in that mindset at the time. You know, it's like...
No, I think, see, to be fair to the current crop of fans, I think I was that caught up in the wave at the time that I probably did. I generally think I probably looked at those 3 signings going, fuck yeah, Martin O'Neill signed them. Who cares? That worked. I think it's hindsight.
Yeah.
I think it is hindsight.
Yeah.
Remember, there was a ton of buzz going around about the club as well, too. I mean, I think that was our first season with Nike as well, wasn't it?
No, still Umbro until Strachan takes over. When Strachan takes over, we're Nike.
Aye, it was when Strachan came in, we went to Nike.
We were still Umbro, yeah.
Still Umbro at this point, aye.
Then we had the Nike.
Do you remember the away kit this season, the white one? It was just a single green stripe down the sleeves and sort of black collar if it was flicked up. But if it was folded down, it continued the green stripe.
It did, yeah.
Oh, I got that for my birthday that year.
We had black shorts with that as well. It was black shorts we wore with that.
Black shorts?
Yes. That was minted.
Aye, the thumbnail that I made for this one, there's a picture of Lubo after his goal at Easter Road that season. He's wearing that kit. That's the one. It's the white with the black. Superb, and it is in the credits. Yes, it is. He absolutely. It's a short free kick. He just takes a touch and absolutely rattles it with his left foot.
Shambles. It's a shambles what he's done there.
Mental. But here we go, guys. Let's have a wee look at what was going on over the six. You're going to keep your eye on the competition. So obviously, Rangers, after beating us to the league by 21 points 2 seasons ago, we've overturned it and won it by 15 points, a 36-point swing. So they're obviously hurting pretty bad. We won everything season 4. So what did they do to try and get back on track under Dick Advocat? So on the way out was Jorg Alberts, Sergio Perini, Rod Wallace, Lionel Charbonnier, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, Two-Guy, Marcus Gale, Peter McDonald, Mark Brown, and also during the season, Kenny Miller and Claudio Reyna would also leave. So that's a lot going out. But who came in over at Ibrox? They brought in Christian Nerlinger from Dortmund, Russell Latipi from Hibs, Michael Ball from Everton, Shota Arveladze joined from Ajax after we put them out of the Champions League qualifier. And yeah, they did sign Claudio Caniggia from Dundee. So a few questionable signings in there. I remember Nerlinger came with a lot of hype for them being a Dortmund player, and I think he was just an injury case. Michael Ball, who I'm going to talk about when we get on to the Celtic Rangers games this one, he's got a very infamous moment. And yeah, it's probably a good thing that Russell Latipi signed for them, because given who was about to become their manager during this season, so that was quite convenient for him. And as I say, Arveladze, we dumped him out of the cup. I guess he was coming to Ibrox to get some revenge on us after we put them out of the Champions League qualifiers. But that was Rangers' business that summer, so that's the competition that we're up against. See, but a lot of big names left there, like Alberts and Van Bronckhorst and all that. It's like,
did Caniggia join as well?
Caniggia did, yes. Caniggia did.
Caniggia and Latipi is like 2 veterans, but see, to be fair, that is when it was a mentality I believe Rangers try to do. They're downsizing kind of in front of your eyes, right? The big signing was getting an England under 21 I think he was an England cap, Michael Ball. Yeah, that was headline grabbing, but really it was half the money of what they'd spent on Flo. But what they were also succinctly doing was buying the best of the rest.
Mm-hmm.
They were, because at that point they had Billy Dodd still very much up front. Neil McCann was in the squad. And then you've got guys like Latipi coming in at 33, Caniggia coming in at 34. But I think that was very much as, yeah, the EBT thing I totally get. I think there's a wee bit of downsizing you're seeing just slightly in front of your eyes. Well, what the mantra became was, rather than try to sign the best of Europe, sign the best of the rest. And make sure Celtic don't get them.
It's didn't we talk about this before, where you said that you could imagine Claudio Caniggia under Martin O'Neill? Remember we talked about the very, very first show we did on Bustalgia, the World Cup, we talked about Argentina, Caniggia, and it was like, you thought maybe Celtic could have got in there and nipped him away, thought he would have done.
I think they were interested. I think Celtic joined the race on that one while the boat had already set sail. But I think Caniggia, bizarrely at 34, would have been the natural successor to 36-year-old Lubo. I think the next 2 years could have been, but I don't think he's a Rangers player, Caniggia. When I think of Caniggia, I don't think of him as a typical Rangers player. I know he has a dodgy pass, so maybe that does. Why they got on so well. But I think footballing wise, he was a bit, and I think Latipi too. I mean, Latipi was never going to become that staunch sort of player. He had no chance yet. Latipi, you look back at what he was doing at Hibs. It's a fucking joy to watch. He was a brilliant player. Absolutely brilliant.
Latipi was rated as one of the best players in the world by the I think the then Hibs chairman or something, Jack, somebody that was where was Latipi from? Trinidad or
Trinidad.
He joined Hibs for Porto.
But so he got one vote for this thing. It was for the best player in the world, and all the chairmen got a vote.
The nomination.
Jack something for Trinidad. It was something to do with Hibernian. Voted for Latipi.
Latipi joined Hibs.
In the world.
Joined Hibs for Porto.
Aye.
You've got to be a decent player if you're a Porto midfielder. Did you not know that?
No, I didn't know who he signed for or who he was with
Porto,
before. Okay, interesting.
Porto, when he was like 29. Again, you talk about standards, and obviously it's a prevalent point. Currently, Liam, you look at the standard of Scottish football in Europe at this point, right? In today's game, sorry. But no winner. There's no way we're getting guys at their peak who've got nearly 100 caps for Trinidad and Tobago, who you might think are shite, but they're also, he's playing with Dwight York every international camp, you know? This guy's joining direct for a quality European side straight to Hibs. Hibs, who I believe that summer also signed for 750 grand, Ulysses de la Cruz.
Ulysses de la Cruz,
who went on, I'm sure, to be one of Ecuador's most capped ever players. Went on to have a 5-6 year English Premier League career with Aston Villa. Right, these were guys. This is what you were. Frank Soze was at the back.
Do you remember Matty's Jack? Remember him, the German defender they had as well? Matty's Jack.
Matty's Jack. So this is just one team in the league at this point, and you're going, what, a former European Cup winner and Frank Soze at the back, who was only when he joined Hibs 33. It wasn't ancient, mate. It wasn't like he was like fucking hell. And you look at guys like Latipi there, who's ended up going to Rangers on a free, and sadly, you know, that was that. I mean, I suppose it was a move he couldn't turn down, Phil. But realistically, I mean, Latipi belonged to he belonged to be the top dog at a club, not a bit part player. It was only ever going to go that way. But I dare say he's went from, for argument's sake, talking sake, this is pure speculation. $5 grand a week he was probably on at Hibs then, which again they wouldn't pay these days.
Wouldn't pay these days.
But $5 grand a week then, he was probably getting 10 to 12 grand a week at Rangers. That's life changing at the end of the day when you're 33 years old.
You can't.
You can't turn it down.
You can't. And by the way, just speaking of Latipi really quickly, obviously we talked about the 2001 season last week. Do you remember just a few weeks after we beat Rangers 6-2, Hibs beat Hearts 6-2 in an Edinburgh derby? And I'm pretty sure Latipi and Mixu Patalainen scored a hat-trick each that night.
But one of the goals, I don't know if you remember the goal.
Is that like jumps up in volleys or something?
Oh my God, he skinned like two folk. He rolled it in, it gets flicked up. I think it is Patalainen who actually gets the assist. And then he just spanks his volley top bins. It is a shambles how good that goal was. But that was how, again, I'm sure we'll talk about it, Phil. This league was a decent standard at this point. This is not the opposition we jump up and down about getting trebles against these days. Let me just categorically tell you that. And I know you can only beat what's in front of you, of course. Trebles are always there to be celebrated. There's a reason this unbelievable Martin O'Neill team only got one treble, and it's because you were up against but I'm not saying elite opposition every week. Far stronger 11 other SPFL teams than what there are now. But in fact, miles apart.
Other teams outside of the Celtic and Rangers bubble weren't afraid to push the boat out at this stage. The TV deal was still pretty good by all accounts. It was when we tried to go solo in 2003. That's when it all started to dip, where we walked away from Sky. But
at this point, very quick. At this point, you're in it had been rebranded in 1998 as the SPL.
Yes,
this was our version of what the 1992 rebranding of English football was, the Premiership.
Yep.
But 1998, Sky came in, serious cash. Serious investment. And Martin Tyler and Andy Gray and all that in the late 90s, remember, were still doing commentary in Scottish football.
They were.
Ian Crocker was the upcoming next best thing. And he was the designated, they made him the voice of Scottish football back to this time, 2001. But that wasn't going, there's our B-side commentator. This is the rising star you're getting. This is how, it was properly invested. It was. I wonder what the TV deal's difference is between now and then when you bring in inflation. And I think it was a far fatter chunk of money Sky were chucking.
the last transfer market, put some inflation on it, and they can tell us what the price is. We'll send an email to them and see if they can come back to us with that answer. Say, guys, can you put some 2022 inflation on that, please? And tell us what it works out at. Yeah, that's how we'll do it, boys. But I just want to quickly say as well, I've noticed in the chat, guys, right? We got to remember what we do with Bustalgia is we're trying to take you back to our mindset at that time. I'm seeing the letters EBTs coming up a lot, and I know, and it's been proven, obviously, that's what Rangers were doing, right? But at that time, in 2001, myself, Boise, Liam, we didn't know what fucking EBT was. Nobody knew that. Rangers was bringing in these players. You know, we didn't know that. So I know that is obviously the reasons why they were getting away with it. But you've got to remember, we're doing this as our mindset at the time in 2001. We're not talking...
It's got fuck all to do as well with the strength of the other 10 clubs.
Ah, well, that's true. I'd say the teams outside the Celtic and Rangers were certainly pushing the boat out compared to nowadays. You know, as Russell said there, you know, Latipi would be getting like $5,000 a week at Hibernian back then, but nowadays Hibs paying $5,000, that's insane amounts for them. So yeah, it's a very different climate at this point. But yeah, I'm aware of the EBT thing, but yeah, we can't do it with hindsight. We're just talking about at that time how it was. We didn't know what that even was, an EBT. So yeah, we can't really.
Egg and bacon on toast.
Aye, egg, bacon and toast. Aye. That's all EBT I know. Aye. Oh, dearie me.
Meal deal at Sainsbury's.
Aye.
Oh, God. And yeah, there's Patrick McGowan saying about the Dundee takeovers. Obviously, I mentioned that last week. Benetti takes over last season, and it continues into this season with just like Tamuri Spire rocks up at this point, and I think Ravanelli's the next season.
Is Chris not one of our younger viewers? So like, it's quality he watches. I think Chris is. I'm sure he is.
Yeah. Yes, aye.
Aye, he must be looking at it going, fucking hell, what the hell was going on then? Yeah, they were overspending, but they were overspending because at this point, the TV money looked like this is only going to get bigger and bigger. Like the fact Sky had came in for this rebranded SPL with the first tranche, like, what do you call it? Is that tranche? Is that a word? Tranche of cash, something like that. To fuck it, who knows?
A big sack of cash.
Big chunk of change anyway. Right, but see when Sky first came in with that, I think at this point you're mirroring English football. You need to remember as well, guys are leaving English football to come to Scottish football.
Yeah.
Not just Celtic and Rangers.
Dean
Windass
yep.
leaving, I think it was Middlesbrough for Aberdeen. Craig Hignett leaving Blackburn for Aberdeen, or vice versa. He moved from Aberdeen. But these were guys that it was feasible then for players to leave English football for Scottish football. And that tells you whatever was getting chucked to the English Premier League by Sky at that point, the disparity, everyone's favourite word, it wasn't that big a gulf. So if say the SPL teams are getting at that point 1 million a year, I think the EPL teams are maybe getting 8-9 million a year.
Yeah. Aye, the money hasn't gone too crazy in England yet.
Still 8 times as much, but it's not a crazy gulf in real terms of finance. You know, when you've got, from a Celtic point of view, 60,000 season ticket holders, and only Man United have more.
Aye, that's how we were the second biggest stadium.
Second biggest by a mile.
Second biggest, aye.
A fucking mile.
Aye. Nowadays,
St. James's, I'm sure, was third.
It might have been, aye. St. James's had a revamp since then, but
I think it was St. James's. Anfield and Highbury were only in the early 40s.
Oh, yeah. Highbury was...
Chelsea was the early 40s. That just tell you, like, it's mad how it's changed so much. And I'm glad I was a part of this time, though. Do you know what I mean? As well, because the belief was there, but it was really justified at that time. You know what I mean? Scottish football was ambitious at this point. Yeah. Yes, it was reckless spending from these other clubs that we're talking about, where some of the spending, like John Spencer, I think was on $7,500 a week at Motherwell, right? Which is, they plunged into administration. Dundee eventually plunged into administration. That's not what we want in Scottish football, of course. But also, some of these ideas the chairman had weren't to put these clubs in administration. It's because what was coming in, if you speculated to accumulate and you got third place, for example, back then, they were going, there's big dollars to be made. We could break even here. This wasn't just reckless spending left, right, and centre. This was season tickets, TV money, which was a far bigger percentage of a club's revenue then than what it is now. See, now, I think Scotland's got the highest percentage of clubs' revenue is based on gates. Did you know that? So clubs in Scotland's gate revenue makes up a bigger percentage of their club's turnover in Scotland, far more than almost any other country in Europe.
Right, okay.
Which is very, whereas, so the percentage I think it is, Phil, for just, I'm sorry, I'm ranting here a wee bit, but the percentage in Scotland for SPFL clubs outside Celtic and Rangers is over 50% of the revenue is brought in through the gates. So an English club, I think it was Bournemouth was the example, the gate money made up 9% or something. Wow. Yeah, they could afford $100,000 a week footballer. Right? And Aberdeen, for example, had more season tickets than Bournemouth, could only afford, even a few years ago, a $2,500, $3,000 a week footballer. Fucking mental, that, eh? Yeah, where's the sporting integrity there? Because that is when it's changed, the landscape's changed. The definition of a big club's changed by then, eh?
It's ridiculous, and everyone keeps predicting the bubble's going to burst eventually, but that's been getting predicted for years, and it still keeps getting bigger and bigger. So who knows, man? But it's insane down there, the amount of money. You see Bournemouth, man, what 10,000 seater stadium? Some of the money they've churned out over the years. It's reckless stuff, and it can only go one way eventually. But I say it keeps getting predicted, and it never seems to come. Now,
Chris, we do accept it, by the way. That's why we're reflecting on these times, mate. Of course, we accept it. We've got no choice but to accept it. But this is Bustalgia, taken from the word nostalgia.
Yes.
So there's no point in moving on if we're doing a nostalgic show. The whole point is we go back to that time.
Compare. So quickly before we head into the sort of halfway point of the show, obviously I'll just take a wee look at Celtic.
Never fun when you need to explain it, Liam, is it? No. Never fun.
So Celtic's pre-season activity in terms of games that they played, they had a couple of games in Ireland against Cork City and Shelbourne that they both won. They went down to London to play QPR at Loftus Road, winning 2-0. 1-0, they had a game against Porto where they lost 1-0, and we will be crossing paths with Porto very soon this season and maybe next season as well. Well, that's a spoiler, obviously. And the Hoops ended their pre-season beating Fulham 3-0 and Sunderland 1-0 at Celtic Park. So I think Sunderland and Fulham were both Premier League teams at that point in time.
Can we be real here? A Premier League team? This was John Tigana's Fulham.
I didn't know Fulham would get promoted that season or the season after. I'm trying to remember in my head.
Malbronk.
Steve Malbronk. Oh my God.
Steve Malbronk. John Collins.
Did they have a strike called Barry Hales or Barry Hayes or something?
Barry Hales, he was all right. But Facundo Sava, did he join the next year?
He's the one who's put the Zorro mask on and scored the goal. Steve Marley.
They signed for £10 million for the French league.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, this wasn't just Fulham. Celtic used to spank these teams for fucking fun back then. You know what I mean? Pre-season friendly or not. We go down there to take the piss out of them.
Aye. Sean Barnes' Pizza Hut, Fulham with Pizza Hut in the front of the shot. I couldn't remember if they got promoted the next season or this season.
No, they got promoted. Aye. I think 2001.
Okay.
They got promoted.
Kevin Keegan's Fulham.
John Tigana.
Was John Tigana? Keegan was manager on the way up, and then he became England manager, didn't he?
Or Division 2, as it was called. But John Tigana, I mean, I don't know, Liam, you'll know more about John Tigana than us. He was a joke. He was Fulham manager, no?
Honestly, I don't even remember Fulham at that time being even a talking point. I don't know.
Mohammed Al-Fayed.
Mohammed Al-Fayed
came in with shekels, but John Tigana was top rated. You know what I mean? But then big Sahal up top. I think he'd scored about 40 goals to get them promoted, and Sahal was a player. We met him obviously in 2008, Phil, didn't we? At Celtic Park, he misses the penalty for United against Arthur.
He does indeed. Aye.
All linked, mate. There's always a Celtic connection.
There is. I say, just mentioned there. Porto's name came up. I mentioned Boa Vista's name earlier. These are teams that are about to cross our paths during this year. Luis Boa Morte. Another one. But yeah, that wraps up the pre-season action then. So as usual, we just hit the hour mark, so that's good. That's convenient. So yeah, I'll do the musical interlude, and when we come back, yeah, we'll be diving into some major talking points from the 2001-2002 season.
It's a race to the urinals.
a good European campaign to talk about. So yeah, we'll be back in 2 minutes. Go, Russell, run now.
His comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.
Do you know, I've got a really funny tweet that's topical to what we were just talking about before the break there. Somebody literally sent me this the other day. It was a screen grab of a tweet that said, guys can literally just sit around and name old sports players and just have the best time. What were we literally doing for the musical break there? Oh, Steve Malbronk. Oh, Barry Hales. Louis Saha. That's what guys do. That is exactly it. It's so true. And it's funny that that popped into my head there, where I was like, I literally saw somebody send me a screen grab of that tweet the other day. So true.
I've got another point. I'm gonna make a confession here, right? And I was thinking this while I was taking my piss in a rush. Do you know what I mean? To beat the music interlude. But whilst all that's going on, I'm still up there, right? I'm still thinking, Liam, right? You know, can't turn the bus off for a second, right? And I actually thought to myself, do you know what? See, when I was supporting this Martin O'Neill team we're about to talk about, right? Here's the disclaimer. This was my Messiah. This was my team at 13, 14. Okay, a teenager, but I was probably a wee bit, not being a smart ass, right? But I was probably beyond my years a wee bit as a teen, right? I was up there, you know what I mean? I wasn't a silly wee dafty, right? And I look at the teenagers that are probably quote tweeting me poo-pooing stuff in this modern era when they've got, this is, to these teenagers, this is their Martin O'Neill. This is their era. I see if some daft 30-odd-year-old living like just like Spandau Ballet, for example, at that time, you know what I mean, was tweeting, oh, watch the board and didn't agree with that transfer and his Ange getting his tactics right. I'd probably be quote tweeting him if Twitter was a thing back then, calling him every name under the sun as well. I've had a bit of moment of clarity now. I think I'm beginning to get it.
It goes in cycles, mate. It's going in a cycle.
I'm a crabbit old bastard. But I've realised, like, if anyone said anything about that Martin O'Neill team, that triple transfer's what's really got me. Because see me now, as you say, put yourself in those shoes. Momo Silva for St Johnstone, Rab Douglas for Dundee or whatever, maybe 6 months or mid-season last year, a free transfer, a £1 million signing for France. You know, Steve Guppy's pal, he's Aaron Moy, basically, right? Let's be honest, that's what I'm getting at. And one blue chip signing. I'm going like that. That's not tooling up a manager who's our saviour. We were 19 points, 21 points behind. He won it by 18, 37-point swing. He's brought the belief back. We've sold out season tickets, and that's all you're giving him. That would be me back then. But see, at that point in time, I think if anyone had critiqued it, I'd have been fucking raging at them. I'd be like, no. Martin O'Neill's like Peter Lawwell, who's he? Dermot Desmond, who's he? Martin makes all the decisions. The way they say Ange now, Ange makes all the decisions. Oh, I've been a fool. Like, that's what it is. It's that same loving, isn't it? I need to respect that a wee bit more sometimes as well. You know that. You need to remember this is it's important when you've got a figurehead that you believe in that much. I get the defensiveness a wee bit because I would have been very much that with O'Neill. No matter what, win, lose or draw, I'm not coming on ranting and raving about Martin O'Neill back then. If I wouldn't have. Yeah. I wouldn't have. Fuck.
The epiphany moment there, live on the bus. Russell's had that moment. He's like, a moment of clarity. Found his zen. There you go, mate.
I'm trying to be more understanding. Do you know what I mean?
The look on it, you just see it. The cogs are turning in his head right now. But you just said there, Russell, a blue chip signing. So let's talk about that blue chip signing. So in last week's show, we had a whole segment dedicated to Henrik and the amazing season he had. We've done a whole show on Chris Sutton. So who's the third part of this attacking powerhouse that we had, at this time? Well, of course, it is none other than Big Bad John himself, John Hartson, the blue chip signing that season. We brought him in from Coventry City, who'd been relegated in the Premier League, I believe. Gordon Strachan's Coventry City. Another person who's going to cross our path in the near future. Again, Celtic connections all over the place.
There's another Celtic connection about Big Bad John.
Another one. Well, is this the nearly signed for Rangers thing? Because that's obviously coming up. No. All right, what's the other Celtic connection?
Do you know how long he was at Coventry for?
He was only there for a season or something, wasn't he?
Less than a season.
Less than just a few months.
Less than a season. So he signed for them for just $2.5 million, I think it was.
Oh man, they made a hell of a profit.
Right. So but he joined. So he joined Wimbledon, I think it was, for $7 million from West Ham. He's fell out there. He's went for $2.5 million to Strachan's Coventry. Who does he put 2 goals past at Old Trafford?
Oh, is it Andy Gorham?
Andy
Yes.
Gorham on loan, and Hartson scores 2 at Old Trafford in these tiny wee spell at Coventry. And I'm like,
oh my God.
Sign him now. Second I heard he was linked, I went, he's brilliant. And it's only because I could remember that Super Sunday where he'd put 2 past Andy. I was like, get it right, round you. Aye, he did that in just a 6 months, but my memory is mad. I can still picture the goals.
Mate, that's incredible.
I remember him playing with Arsenal. I can remember.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
He was no mug. I mean, he was a prolific, striker down in England. I thought it was good. But the thing was, we already had 2 strikers. Why would you sign a third striker?
There's no place for him. There's just no way he can get in. You can't do that. It just upsets everything.
Yeah.
Very quickly as well, by the way, when he joined Arsenal, he was the British record transfer fee for under 21.
Oh wow! So Chris Sutton was a transfer record as well.
Right. Hartson was the youngest player, I think, to cost £3 million or something like that when he signed for Luton straight to Arsenal, I'm sure. And then I think that record was broken by Arsenal, who've got a history of this, for Jermaine Pennant. I think that's only when that record was broke. But just a bit of tribute. So he was highly, highly rated. Hartson was playing with Bergkamp and Ian Wright, competing for their jersey, as Liam says.
I believe he's in the Arsenal team that. No, would he have won the cup one? No, I think he was in the Arsenal team that lost the Cup Winners' Cup final. I think he signed for Arsenal. Aye, because it's that Nike Arsenal kit. I can see it in my head right now, but I think he missed it the year before. He hadn't signed for them yet. Liam, I'm glad you brought that up because, again, I said at the start of the show, we're going to draw some parallels to things that are going on. We've already done it, but there you go. We saw it in the summer there. We talked about a third striker. We threw Jordan Lars's name out there because he seemed quite obtainable. People were piling on Twitter saying, no, you can't do that. It offsets things. Where's he going to fit in? He's going to be unhappy. And it's like, here's Martin O'Neill. He's got Larson. He's got Sutton. And he's like, do you know what? I'm going to sign John Hartson as well. 3 top-class strikers in the squad at the same time. Because here's the fact, you can't have too many good players. You can't have too many of them. So simple.
This is crazy, Phil, what you're saying. You're blowing my mind.
I'm reinventing the wheel, mate. That's what I'm doing right now.
I'm so emotionally attached to the 2 that are already there that we can't sign anymore because I can't actually handle any of them sitting on the bench. Fuck, whoever sits on the bench. And by the way, Big Bad John, he had to do a lot of sitting on the bench when he joined. And fair play to him, because you know what he did? He stuck it out. And that's why I respect Big Bad John massively. He came up, he could have been, with the attitude we thought he had, Liam, right? Was he's a prick, right? But we also knew Sutton, or we were told Sutton was a prick, you know, before he came up. And I thought Hartson's worse. You know, you see the kung fu kick he did on Berkovic in training, not because there's any love lost for Berkovic, but just because you go, do we really want that? I think Hartson came up here, and whatever ideas he might have had of being the ticket, that dressing room was the wrong dress. I think that's the dressing room that took John Hartson at first to school. John Hartson might have come up in a big wage packet. See, when you sit down and it's Sutton going, oh God, not what would you call it? The nearly ran, the almost ran, whatever they call it. Is he not the backup striker from Arsenal? What was signing him for? You can hear it. Henrik going, Henrik, do you know who John Hartson is? Who? And you can just see it. And it's just like, this is now hell. And Hartson probably realizing you ain't the big dog anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is now the toughest schoolyard you've ever been in. And if you think Martin O'Neill's going to be putting his arm around you all the time, forget that. He's going to bench you for the start, mate. You're going to need to earn it here. And I bet you thought you'd come to Scotland. Maybe, no offence to John Hartson, but we know that we've seen it. Guys like Joey Barton who come up, who've had mediocre careers in England, think they could just come up to Scotland and romp it. Well, Hartson got, I think, a wake-up call this season, Phil, to be honest with you, initially, because he couldn't get a start at the beginning.
Yeah, it's when I read the Celtic Wiki's profile on that website, just to get, like, you know, go back to that time and see how he settled in. I was quite stunned to see his statistics. But yeah, hat-trick
John
against
Barlow's got knowledge tonight.
Yeah, he does, mate. He does, because I say he signed for us in the summer, £6 million, which equals our record that we paid for Chris Sutton the year before. However, it could have been very, very, very different, because just less than a year before that, he very nearly signed for Rangers. He turned up at Ibrox the same day that Ronald de Boer got signed. But of course, the infamous failed medical occurred, and Rangers regaled on the deal. They obviously signed de Boer, but Hartson went back down the road, so he ended up signing for Coventry. And now we've ended up bringing him up here. But yeah, according to the Celtic Wiki, he joined in August and didn't get his first goals until October, which brings me back to this point. Apparently, it was 11 appearances, obviously starts and subs. But that brings me back to the point we were talking about earlier. Again, if social media was around back then, Russell, we brought in this striker from the English Premier League. He's got a pretty good goal record down there. But, you know, we paid $6 million for this guy, and he's went 11 appearances without a goal. How do you think Twitter and other social media platforms would have reacted at that point in time? How do you think it would be going right now for John?
Yeah, I mean, waste of money. Absolutely. You know, he just, you know, fucking the manager's not got a clue. Overrated EPL players' attitude and all that shite would have been coming at the fore. But I think there's something very grounding about what O'Neill does with these guys. We've seen it the year before with Sutton. And that's probably why when you think about Celtic parting with that money, Liam, right, for the money, John Hartson was 6.5, I think Sutton was 6. I think Celtic's willingness to spend that, they're always reluctant to. But I think when Martin O'Neill's got that glaring example of, look what I did a year ago, and trust me, Sutton's a bigger prick. He's a softie, that Hartson. Wait, like, he'll be in his place. And they're going, you sure? It's like he's got a body of evidence to support it. So he's going, his hand is stronger because of that, you know. But I take your point. I mean,
by the way, that was John Hartson must have been the first person that ever failed a Rangers medical at the time, because they had a long-standing tradition of like hiring, like, you know, signing absolute gimps that never got a game. You know, there was, I think, was it Daniel Prodan, and there was the guy from Rosenthal. There was like a series of players, even that Michael Ball and that. There was loads and loads of players that came up to Rangers around about that time that were crocked. And it was funny that Hudson was the one that failed the physical, and all the other ones got the go-ahead. And so, and there was social media at that time, by the way. There was a Celtic list at that point. There was a version of the huddle board and Celtic minded, and then there was also the North American Tim's list as well that to be quite active. And people were bringing it up as well. People were worried that he'd failed a medical at Rangers because Nobody failed the medical at Rangers.
No, but wait for the quote. What was the quote? What was the quote? And he said, because John Hartson was paranoid about it. Am I freezing?
No, you're okay just now.
What was the quote?
But
What
you know,
was the quote?
he's Martin O'Neill said, unless there's a hole in your heart, you'll be signing for this club, John.
Oh man, good thing he did bloody sign him, because what a player he turned out to be. But yeah, it was an interesting twist of fate, that one. The Rangers regaled on it. But you're right about the medical thing, because there's one I mentioned earlier on. A guy that they signed this season was Christian Nerlinger. Barely played a game because he was injured all the time, and it was like, they would sign guys that had a bit of a sketchy record. So good thing they were good, because he did certainly come back to haunt them at times over the next few years, because his goal record against them was pretty good. But yeah, his first goal's coming a 5-1 victory over Dundee United. He actually scores a hat trick in his first when he first finds the net. Can he stop scoring then? Because he goes on and ends up being our second top scorer for the season. But I think one of his big moments for the season is on the last day, but the day that we win the league officially. We beat Livingston 5-1. I remember him and Larson. I think Larson gets a hat trick that day and Hartson scores too. But the two of them were fantastic. But again, and the thing is, this is again testament how good Henrik Larsson was, whether it was Larsson with Hartson or Larsson with Sutton, or in some cases you'd play all three of them together, because Sutton would be the guy that would drop back. You'd think maybe in your head that Larsson's a guy that would play that number 10 role that they talk about, the guy behind the strikers. But no, sometimes it was Sutton that would do it. When the three would play together, again, just goals all over the place. I think it's the next season that we're going to talk about. And I think I mentioned this in the Sutton episode where I rattled off their goal tallies every season. I think between them next season, they score 80 goals between the three of them. It's insane the amount of goals that they were just churning out, and what Hartson added to an already amazing partnership with Sutton and Larsson. Just phenomenal player.
He had to earn it though. I think that's what I like about. I like the fact that Hartson never came up here and was just gifted a starting place because he cost $6.5 million. Now, let's be honest. In real terms, you're the Celtic money man, right? And you've commissioned your transfer record fee, and it's now October. Did you say, Phil?
October, yeah.
He ain't starting games. You're now beginning to look at a manager going, what the fuck's going on here? Like, you are though, because you're going, and I think this is the fucking difference, right? Where a manager gets full autonomy of what he's doing. He is in control, and Martin's able to go, shut up. He signed a 5-year deal, a 4-year deal. You're judging after 8 games not starting. Speak to me in 4 years' time, and of course, in 4 years' time, he'll be 100-time goal scorer for Celtic and go into history. You know, but O'Neill had the bollocks to integrate him at his pace and at the pace that was required for the Celtic team to adapt as well. That's what I love. And in fact, in 01-02, I wouldn't even say, despite the goals Hartson scored, he was definitely not in the best Celtic starting lineup. He wasn't. You weren't picking your favourite Celtic lineup with John Hartson in it.
Yeah, his best was yet to come, definitely. But he still scores like 19 league goals this season. And it's like, but he's not even, he would still be third choice behind Sutton and Larsson, you're right. And but yeah, his best yet to come. And I say next season between the three of them, I think they get 80 plus goals between them. So Hartson's only going to keep getting better. But what an addition he was. And out of the 4 signings that we made, him and Baldy definitely big impact players in that team. I say Guppy and Silla less so, I would suppose, but Hartson just phenomenal player, and we'll be talking a lot more about him going forward in the Martin O'Neill month, because he's only going to keep getting better. But guys, the big stories from this year all revolve mostly around our European campaign, our first ever Champions League venture, because obviously the tournament got rebranded in 1992-93. Funny enough, the same year that the English Premier League became a thing as well, where it went from being the first division to the Premier League. So 92-93 seems to be quite a pivotal year in the world of football for rebranding. But yeah, the European Cup became the Champions League, and then introduced a group stage phase now instead of being straight knockout. And our only other attempt up to now to qualify for it came in '98 when we won the title for the first time in 10 years. Didn't get too far though. Similar story to what we see with Celtic a lot, where we go out in the qualifiers. We were beat by Dynamo Zagreb. It was actually Croatia Zagreb at that point. They went through like a 5 or 6 year period where they changed the name to Croatia Zagreb, then went back to being Dynamo Zagreb. But that was obviously Mark Viduka was playing for them, Robert Prozinecki. But we beat them 1-0 at Celtic Park and lost 3-0 out there. So it was the only sniff of maybe getting close to the Champions League, but no, we never made it. So now we're champions again, and we've got one round of qualifiers to navigate, and we get paired against Ajax. And this again is up there with games during the Martin the Leader that are iconic. And again, something again, Russell, that we spoke about last week very briefly. We talk about certain kits and the moment where I said, and when Celtic win trophies at Hampden and their away kits, they'll usually put the hoops on. And it's quite annoying. So sometimes some kits are just synonymous with a moment. And for me, this, the yellowish gold top with the dark green shorts, NTL across the front, this game always comes to mind for me against Ajax, where we go out there. And
I've got a good story.
Yeah,
good story. Before I know, Liam, I'm stealing your thunder tonight, big man. I hate that because you've got better stories than me. But I went on holiday with my school pal who was called Chris Doherty, right? His dad is Daily Record top sports writer, John Doherty, right? He is, I think, I don't think he's the chief writer, but he's sick. He's huge, right? He's been doing it for 30 years by this point. Sound as fuck. And even back then, I'm only, 14 approaching 15. I'm chipping away at him the whole holiday. Talk to him about this. I remember asking him who do you think the best SPL player will be that's not at Celtic Rangers, and he said Chris McGroarty at Dunfermline. He wasn't right, but it was like I was chipping. I can still remember the conversations we were having. We went on holiday to Lanzarote. He took us, and we went out for dinner. We walked out, and John Dockett turns out exclusive, big Celtic man, right? Okay. But he always was more covering Edinburgh football. So everyone thought he was a Hearts fan. Right? Everyone, like to a man, thought every reader, see any phone in, they would call him biased and that towards Hearts. He's a Hearts fan. He was the same as us, right? Now, he fucking is walking, we're walking back for dinner, and he sees a Hoops jersey. He's like, Russell, come with me. He's like, excuse me. The guy's like, all right. And he's like, what was the score? Guy turns around, he goes, have you not heard, sir? 3-1 Celtic. And John Doherty is obviously acutely aware. He's top journalist still, and he's looking at me going, this could bite me in the arse with this wee bastard. Even at 14, I'm looking at him going, he's trouble. I can imagine. And I'm like, what? But he just gave me a wink. And he went, that's some scoreline. Next day, all we did was go through the Scottish paper, well, not the Scottish paper, the UK papers looking for articles at the Sunderland. He's going, Boise, this sounds like it's been an incredible night. He goes, I'm not exaggerating. He goes, this is shockwaves. Yeah. And at this point, I'm trying to process it all. And I'm going, you're right. I'm 14 at this point. I can't remember us getting a big landmark win. And he's going, oh, no. This is huge. So this isn't when smartphones, he can just go in the Daily Record app and see what his colleagues are saying. He's having to read the second-hand English Sun newspaper, for example, stuff like that. But he's showing me stuff. He's going, look, this is how well Celtic played. And I remember him going, something's happening. That's it. Something's happening. This is a guy at this point, as I say, 25 years, probably a journalist by that point. I think he went on for another 10, 15. Sound as fuck, big John Doherty, by the way. So honestly, sound as anything. But interesting insight when he's telling you something's happening, and you're like, you're trying to grasp it because to me, it's like we've had a few shite years. Primary school for me was shite, but high school since Martin O'Neill's came in, I almost expected us to beat Ajax under O'Neill. But realistically, that sort of result hadn't happened in a long, long time.
No, definitely had no. Our European ventures, we did the Bustalgia for the early 90s. Celtic, even going into the late 90s, our European nights were pretty dismal. I think a win over Cologne in the early 90s was like the highlight, and Cologne aren't exactly on the level of Ajax, to be honest. But this was huge. And the Bobby Petr goal, for example, like one thing I always remember that is that Van der Sar saves it, doesn't he? And it goes out wide to Petr. And the way he hits it with his stronger foot on the left, it's the way he bends it into the net, where you feel like that's one that you would sort of cut inside and bend it in, but because he's left-footed, he just basically hits it like it's essentially a cross, and it just goes right into the net, because Van der Sar parries it right back out to him. The second goal was a gap right through a goal, and they couldn't catch him. Just a blistering pace right through it. He just slots it past them, no problem at all. And of course, the third goal is Chris Sutton at his best, just throwing himself at it. Just the cross comes in, and he just is like, get out of my way. Nobody stopped me getting on the end of this, and power header. But yeah, it was astounding to go there and win, well, 3 goals past them. Unbelievable. As I say, that yellow and green kit, whenever I think about that, that is a moment that always goes back to my head. It's the win over Ajax. It just reminds me of it. It takes me back to that exact moment. I think it was because I was changed. It was actually about to change to the new away kit, which was also the same colour scheme, wasn't it? But we had the white one, we also had another yellow one as well. But yeah, they changed it up a wee bit. But it always takes back. But yeah, but fun enough, when we talked about last week's one, you mentioned Bobby Petr, you know, and I'm the same, like, because goals always like stand out more than like other games. Maybe we had an assist here and there. But that was some finish by Petr, wasn't it? And keep in mind, this is a guy that was signed on a free transfer from Ipswich under John Barnes that had a new lease of life under Martin. Phenomenal.
I thought Petr would have done a lot better for us than they actually did, because you're right, it looked so promising in so many of those early games, right? Going back to that Ajax game, it was absolutely brilliant. I remember seeing that in the telly here. I mean, you know, when you were saying earlier, Russell, that, you know, Martin O'Neill's your Messiah, it's, you know, it's the same as well too, especially living in North America so long. Mm-hmm. You know, these were the seasons where we finally got to see every single Celtic game. So there was that building, the emotion was back in Celtic now, right? Because now I could see it and I could scream at the referee and shout in the pub and all that. Right? It's not the same when you're watching a video or reading the paper or, you know, anything like that. So it was, Celtic became much more accessible again back then for people like me. And so, yeah, so Martin O'Neill and that team was just put in such a pedestal. And when we finally came out and we started shooting in Europe, it was different altogether. My best pal, he was at the game, and he's 12 years younger than me, so he went through that barren period as well, you know, and he played football, so he didn't watch a lot. But when he stopped playing football, that was when he started watching this team, and he went to the game in Amsterdam, and he still says it's his best ever night watching and supporting Celtic. Was the atmosphere in there, everything about it. I mean, it wasn't one of these things where we were like hanging on. No, we took them apart. And then, and I'm sure you might get to it, Phil, but they had some pretty good players on the park that night. There's one that's still playing it came on.
Zlatan Ibrahimovic, yes, indeed.
But that team is a joke.
Speaking of players that were playing, I was saying Van der Sar. Van der Sar was at Fulham at this point. Again, Fulham, I'm so confused with Fulham's timeline. But turns out, Sean Barlow, the goalkeeper's name was Grim. Rob McLean commentating saying his name was like his save. Grim. I'm just looking up there. Oh, God, what a grim name to have, quite literally. Yes, it's a grim name. But they were.
Look at the players, though, right? Because I brought them up. Van der Vaart's in the team.
Oh, yeah.
We all know what Rafael van der Vaart went on to do.
Yes.
Shot at Everladze.
Yep.
I think it's him who scores.
He scores a consolation goal for them in the home game.
Kristen Kivu.
Oh, Kivu, yep.
Remember, went on to be fucking, was
Inter Milan.
Inter Milan, yeah.
And Roma, I think he played for Roma as well,
my class won the European Golden Boot only a couple of years before that. And he was only 28 at this point. So a European Golden Boot winning striker.
Wow.
You look at other guys like Zlatan Ibrahimovic on the bench.
Yeah.
I know Liam's alluding to. This was Neymar's. Yeah, they were a young team, right? Mm-hmm. Fuck all that. Ajax, young players are always still. They all went on. This was a team that was shit hot that we took to school on their own backyard. That is what happened. And we did it with 36-year-old Tom Boyd.
We did, aye. Yeah, Tom Boyd was in the team as well. You mentioned that one last night. So again, that's something that's easily forgotten. But it's a hell of a performance. And even though, they did come to Celtic Park and get a 1-0 win, but ultimately we were through.
Mido started up front. Remember him, the big Egyptian boy?
Middlesbrough and Tottenham. Yeah.
Aye. Do you know he was like, so see when he went to England, do you know he was the richest player in the league by a mile?
Oh my God.
So his dad was like a sultan or something. So he was like basically just, he was like, so
Wow.
the stories like on open goal. He was at Middlesbrough going, I know I'm the top earner here, right? He's like, but actually it makes no odds. I was the richest guy in the league when I joined. Aye.
So he was
His
the
dad, like,
original
some
Egyptian
points or
king
something.
before Mo Salah. He's the
Aye,
original
mate.
one.
He's probably still got more money than him. Like he started
Wow.
the game against us.
Mido. Yeah,
Mido.
I remember him, yeah.
That's sorry, just because I just clocked
No,
that
again,
name,
it's that. Go back to that
Sorry
tweet
for that.
again where guys could just name random sports stars from yesteryear and go, oh my God, remember him? Mido?
Mhm.
Yes. Do remember that one. But yeah, obviously we
Aye.
get through the I tried to buy Middlesbrough when he was there.
He was a player, Liam, and he tried to buy the club.
Oh my God.
Because apparently,
Jesus.
well, you obviously another Celtic connection. Strachan was his manager eventually.
So he was, aye.
Strachan
Aye.
didn't know what to do. Because he was like, right, pal, you're going to need to, you're going to need to, and he's like, fuck off, mate, I'm not going to do what I want. So he's just basically sitting there fat as fuck on 50 grand a week and the richest player in England. Like he played against
Strachan probably couldn't get past the security.
No, probably no. Jesus, man. That is incredible knowledge. Brilliant trivia. Guinness for hams on Bustalgia. We just name random sports. We go, oh my God, remember him? Aye, Mido. But yeah, so Celtic obviously get by Ajax, even though Ajax come to Celtic Park and beat us 1-0. Wamberto scored the goal that night. But 3-2 on aggregate, and we are through. We're in the Champions League group stages. And yeah, pretty hard group to welcome us to the tournament. We've got Juventus, who won the Champions League. It was a few years before. It was 1997 was the last time they'd won the Champions League. No, 96. Sorry, they won the final in 97. They won in 96. We also got Porto. I say I'll go across our paths again next season for a different reason. And we got Rosenborg, who, of course, were led by Harold Bratback, who was in our... Obviously, stopping the 10, very significant part he played in winning the title that season. So that was a group to welcome us to Champions League football. As I said earlier on, we were meant to play Rosenborg in the first round of fixtures. It was either on the 11th of September or it might have been the Wednesday night, the 12th of September. Either way, the game had to get put back because of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. So it ended up, we actually started the campaign a couple of weeks later, going away to Turin to play Juventus in the Stadio delle Alpi. And this, of course, is an infamous game for many reasons. David Trezeguet puts Juventus 2-0 up just before the hour. It looks like we've got to keep the score down, essentially, because we're just falling apart against a top team here. But then something happens. We get a goal back from a free kick. Stan Petrov. It's a pile driver that gets laid off to him, and he just puts his laces through it, and it's like a low-driven one. And that gets us back into the game at 2-1. And then we get a penalty with just a few minutes to go. Saves Henrik Larsson and scores. Of course, the thing is, in the build-up to that penalty, we have been the much better team. Since we got that goal back at 2-1, the momentum's all rush. Juventus are a bit spooked. We obviously get this late equaliser, 85, 86 minutes on the clock. You're like, well, what an incredible result. We've been 2-0 down against a top team like Juve with guys like, Ned. I don't think Nedved signed for them. He might have signed for them at that point, but they've got like Trezeguet and stuff. In fact, Nedved is there because we talked about him in the Lubo episode. Top team, and we've got back to 2-2. You're like, brilliant, or maybe we even go on and win this game. You never know. But then because the game goes into stoppage time, a nameless long ball into the box from Juventus. Brazilian striker Nicola Amoroso chases it down, and he takes a tumble. And originally, it looks like there's no much in it at all. But sensationally, the referee points to the spot. And of course, we know what happens next. They score and they steal it. And then we get the infamous, or maybe, I don't know if you want to say it, infamous, Glenn Davies making a very valid point. We get the Martin O'Neill post-match interview. Extraordinary. We were absolutely extraordinary. Shocking. I mean, I watched it again the other night just to refresh my head. He's talking about when the ball goes out of play, he literally turns away back to the bench thinking, that's it, we've done it. Only to be shocked when he hears the whistle go and turns around and sees the referee's awarded a penalty. I mean, it goes without saying, it's an absolute ludicrous decision. It really is. But Russell, at the time, how heartbreaking, how frustrating was it that close? What a Champions League debut that would have been, to get a point in the Stadio delle Alpi and to get it taken away so cruelly from us. Was that just a sort of welcome to the big boy league, boys? This is what happens here. This is dog eat dog,
There was a bit of that, but the one thing that really strikes is it is Martin O'Neill month after all, Phil. And what he did after it, which I think was so refreshing, I'm sure you'll agree, Liam, was despite the fact we could all laugh at the extraordinary, and he was, he was curling his arse when he was saying it, and then he was like, shocking. I turned away, and I can't believe it. I can't believe it. But what he did, right, what he was doing there was, he just went from being the Messiah to one of us.
Yeah.
In one emotional interview, he just became a fan again. And I think that's when, see the loving for him just then doubles down all over again. Because he, at this point, he's already been sent off. I don't know if you remember, he got banned from the dressing room after the game. He was banned for the next game, which was a home game against Porto, who obviously have become a foe of ours. But we beat that season. People forget 1-0, all the same players. Under O'Neill. But he was actually sent off during the game because he goes fucking mental at one point as well. Runs like 20 yards and he's ranting at the official. So he's been sent off. Then he does that interview. And I think he transcends from like this untouchable Messiah. Yeah. I think it's the equivalent, as I say now, I've had my moment. It'd be the equivalent of Ange losing his shit and just suddenly becoming like, nah, mate, I'm not having this anymore. I'm raging. And us all going, yes, Ange, you are one of us. I think it was an O'Neill moment where we were already on board with him, right? Yeah, of course we were. But I think his emotion there was genuinely like a supporter for him in it. But not because he was being a green-tinted spec supporter. He was telling the truth, but he wasn't afraid to tell the truth. Yes. That's what I loved about it. Liam, when he does that interview, he did transcend it, right, didn't he?
He did. He said what we were all feeling as well. I mean, you know, when I look at that Bobby Madden semi-final that we had, you know, if Angela came out and said something at that point, every single fan would have been right behind him. I don't like this passive sort of, oh, well, we'll just play to the whistles and we, you know, the referee can't affect the game and all that. Like, it's not been fucking mugs. I mean, Steven Gerrard came out and called it in his first week, and he'd even know kick the ball.
That's right.
You know, talking about the injustices over the years, and then he went on to further weeks to imply that somehow Rangers, anytime we got something they didn't or whatever, he was in the press about it. He set a precedent, and we're still feeling repercussions for that stuff. So for me, O'Neill to come out at that point, you know, and say something was good. But I tell you what,
and it wasn't just to the Scottish cameras, Liam, though.
No.
This is your ITV interview, you know. I love that.
We went through a succession of really, really bad calls in Europe after that as well.
Oh, yeah.
There was a fraternity there. And I think O'Neill, you know, ruffled their feathers the wrong way. There was a lot. I remember a guy named Colombo and stuff like that. Like the referees we had that were just, you couldn't go anywhere near a player. They were blaming it on the physicality of Scottish football, which is absolute shite, you know, and players were hitting the ground as soon as we went near them and that. And there was a lot of European referees at that time just lapping that up. And it did feel like the big teams were getting all the decisions. Again, we're in Europe, and so you've got, you know, the old lady. There's Juventus getting the shit. Yep. I remember we played against Arsenal. Arsenal got a really bad divey penalty.
That's right, Eduardo. Yeah. Right.
I remember Pep Guardiola taking one of the most fucking brutal dives I've ever seen in a game, playing against us at Celtic Park. You know, when he was with Barcelona. I'm sure it was Guardiola.
No.
That is
Guardiola.
I say there could have been an element though of like welcoming the big boy league guys. This is what it's like here.
He took a really bad dive against us when they played us. I can't remember what game it was. It was when we had.
The one where we beat them with Thompson scores the.
It wasn't Guardiola. There was a few though. I know what you mean.
Is it Thiago Motta who gets sent off that night as well?
There was him. There was Saviola playing.
Guardiola.
Yeah, he was gone, man. He left Barcelona at 30.
Yeah, he was at Brescia and Roma and stuff like that as well.
Roma and all that. He's a prick, Guardiola. I wish he was playing against us because fucking Lennon would have had him back then.
He would have. He definitely would have.
Man. He fucking would have. But it's very interesting what you're saying there, Liam. Though, was the favourable decisions getting made to the more in vogue clubs? The old ladies, you describe it. I mean, I think there is an element of that, and I think what O'Neill was trying to do was the same thing he did when he took over. We spoke about last week. You know, he's walked in that press conference. I know this for a fact. His first ever press conference at Celtic in front of the Scottish hacks. And before it started, before it's lights, camera, action, he just goes, so you all know I have a very, very long memory. What does that even mean? What does that even fucking mean? He is messing with our heads. That's what he said to them. I know that for a fact from the, you know, not for John Docherty, but for someone else. But that is what he said. Just so you all know, I've got a very, very long memory. That is how you put the trust. And I think he's went just very quickly. I'm sorry. I think he's went into the Champions League, first post-match media conference, same attitude. We talk about we want our managers to stick to their guns and all that. Well, fucking Martin did. Martin was like that. He's looking at the the European press or whatever, and he's just going, I don't care. I want to tell you right now what I think. We've just been screwed. I love that. I honestly love it.
Liam's talking about the refereeing decision stuff and Martin O'Neill, what he said there. Well, in the long memory quote, 2006, I want to say it is. It seems it would be 2006 or maybe Euro 2008. Martin O'Neill's doing punditry again for ITV or BBC. And one of the games he's on, the referee was Slovakian referee Lubos Michel, who was the referee in Seville. And at half-time or full-time, whatever it was, he sat in the studio, it was Gary Lineker he was with, and he said, I just want to tell you right now, that referee, and he went off on a big rant about Lubos Michel. He says, I have never forgot his name, I have never forgot his face to this day for what he did to us in Seville, and he just went on this big rant about, I'm telling you, he's the worst official I have ever seen in my life. And so he does not forget, he really does not. That was in, I want to say 06 or 08, seems like about the right time.
And I love this for Sean Barlow, by the way, Phil. I'm not trying to take over the comments, but I think certain ones need brought up when I see it.
Sure.
Right? Because that is what you forget. Okay, it might be rebranded Champions League. This boy's won 2 of these. Whilst I might have Didier Agatis playing, who I've signed for £35,000, Ipswich Town reserves on the left, like Bobby Pettit. You know what? 36-year-old Tom Boys, but he goes, I fucking know how this competition works.
Aye. But you know what else I liked about O'Neill, and I think this is why, again, Messiah, right? He was a full-on lawyer as well. Did he not go to school and become a lawyer?
Did he?
What did he as well?
Like, it seems like he's got the savvy for it anyway, the way he goes about things. You can imagine
I
him.
know John Brown was.
I think he was a lawyer. I remember it being something like that. Somebody that's good typing can check it out.
Well, Russell's taking it to VAR right now. He's taking
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
The way he handled the press, the way he handled everything as well was so measured and so, like, that's what I loved as well. And I think we all like that wee bit about Ange as well. You know, he'll answer a daft question with no daft answer, but like with a bit of acknowledgement. That he'll not let it slip that you asked him a daft question. There'll be something about it, and then he'll answer you properly. And I think O'Neill was very, very
never
good.
completed his degree in criminology.
Okay.
But that was good. That was, he did study a degree in criminology. Never completed it. But there's other folk coming in saying he definitely is a lawyer. Do you know what? I'm happy to give him that. I'm happy to give him that. If Ange just had a trophy-laden career, Martin O'Neill could be a lawyer.
By the way, also in the comments about Gary Bouncer said, hope you're not thinking of ending this soon. This is great. First of all, thanks, Gary. We really, really appreciate that. But mate, this is Bustalgia. You've been around long enough on this show, Gary. You know how long it goes. Mate, I mean, what? That's an hour and 42 minutes. We're only about halfway through the show, mate. We're only on point number 2.
The boys in their overtime, man.
We are indeed. As I said earlier on, you just name a random player for this time and we'll stop for 5 minutes and go, oh my God, remember him? We'll just go for a tangent. That's what happens. But we head on after the Juventus. We put it aside. We've got 2 home games back-to-back against Porto and against Rosenborg, and we won both of them 1-0, and it gets us right back in the group, having 6 points. I believe Larsson scores the winner against Porto, and Thompson with the winner against Rosenborg, to get us back on track, essentially. But then something that will become indicative of Celtic over the next few years in European football, European group stage football, is we seem to be not too bad when it comes to home games, but away games, it seems to go very, very wrong. So we've already lost in Turin. We beat Porto at home. This was the back-to-back fixtures, fixture 3 and 4. And we go out to Porto in the next one, we lose 3-0. And then we've got Rosenborg away, and we lose that 2-0. Harold Bratback comes back to haunt us in a big way, scoring twice. But that, of course, sets it up for the
Fucking
epic.
unbelievable that though.
I know how.
Like it's unbelievable. Like Bratback, Liam. Like, let's be honest, was a guy who's been bailed out by that goal, right? And to clinch the title in 97-98. He underwhelmed. He came with the pedigree of Champions League goals.
Right.
Comes to Celtic, doesn't score many, and then we face him in the Champions League again. And what does he do? He scores goals. I could not believe this guy. I'm looking at him and he looked ruthless against us too. Those two finishes and.
Did he play with anybody else other than us in Rosenborg?
I don't think so. I think he went back straight back and forth. And yeah, Rosenborg, remember he'd scored at the San Siro, I'm sure. I think he'd scored at the Bernabeu. He was kind of, do you know what?
Everybody's bogey team back then. That was.
Do you know what he was? It was them and Dynamo Kiev.
Aye.
And funnily enough, Dynamo Kiev had a certain striker who was scoring goals against the big boys for fun. We thought we were getting. And we thought when Bratback was joining, we're getting the Rosenborg version of this because he's scoring against the big teams.
Yep.
This team's punching above the weight the same way Dynamo Kiev are. We're getting that version. He flattered to deceive in a Celtic jersey, for being honest. The goal against St Johnstone bails him out.
Yep.
Big time. Talking about alternative qualifications, he joined as a pilot as well.
He's the pilot, aye.
Yeah, he is. Team on a plane at one point, or our supporters? There was a thing.
Yes, there was. There's a game. Maybe the Copenhagen one a few years ago. I think it may be the Copenhagen game under Lenny.
That's class, eh?
I think Bratback was flying the plane for whatever airline it is. Imagine you're a Celtic fan on the plane, the captain comes on. This is your captain, Harold Bratback. You'd be like, yes, fucking come on. That'd be amazing.
But that bastard hurt us that year big time because see this away European hoodoo or whatever, it began with this group stage campaign, Phil. Because of the 3 defeats. But when you look at it, you go, Juventus, we should have got a point. We were diddy out it. And Rosenborg, we genuinely thought the honest consensus at that time in 2001 was we'll get a point at least over there. We'll probably beat them over there.
Yeah.
That's what we felt. 2-0 wasn't on the menu, let alone it being Harold.
Nobody was worried about Harold Bratback. We'd seen him up close.
Or Rosenborg.
You know?
We thought that was a game, Liam, we were going to get the points, didn't we?
Oh, definitely.
Aye, and it wasn't to be, but of course it sets us up now where we go into the last group game. It's one we've talked about in the bus before, and again, it's up there with those iconic games in Martin O'Neill's time as manager. We're going to the last game against Juventus at Celtic Park. Juve have already qualified. We need to win and hope that Harold Bratback will do us another favour and put some goals past Porto and hold them to, well, I think it was they had to lose. I think Rosenborg had to beat them. I don't think a point would even be enough, if I remember right. But basically, we've got to do our part first and foremost, and we certainly do. Okay, yeah, Juventus may have fielded their second string team because, I say second string, their team would have scalped most of the Scottish Premier League at that point, no problem.
Still the same disparity, Phil. There was still the same gulf as there is now.
Yeah, that's
even with Juventus's B team.
Yeah. It's but yeah, they obviously Del Piero playing. Now you told me an astonishing fact there because in my mind I've always got Del Piero. Well, he is a Juventus legend, but you're saying at this point in time, Del Piero wasn't really in the Juve team, which I find sensational because to me it's like he's like Francesco Totti at Roma. For as long as he was at the club, he was always like the talisman. And you're telling me that this is a period where Del Piero wasn't really in the team, but he scores. What a free kick he scores!
He's Ryan Giggs phase at Man United. People forget that goal Man United, for example. You know, Ryan Giggs scores the best goal ever for Man United. You know, against Arsenal when skinned the whole team. Yep. It's because he was a sub.
Fresh legs, waiting extra time.
At that time, Del Piero had a phase at 27-28 where he was just slightly out of favour at Juve. Yeah, by the time he became almost early to mid 30s, a better all-round player. And then he was just key for them right up till 36, 37. And then Lenny tried to obviously sign him for Celtic. And he went to Australia instead.
That's right. So
that was a Celtic link.
Right.
It was Celtic or Australia. That was it.
He chose Australia.
But
what a free kick he scores that night, though. Unbelievable. sensational, filthy free kick, and Trezeguet scores the other two for them. But yeah, this is the night that Sutton scores that volley. Yusuf Harid scores an amazing header where he literally just throws himself at it at the corner. Sutton with a header and obviously Larson with a penalty, but we go on, we win 4-3. It's a big European scalp, but in the end, it wasn't enough because Porto got the result they needed against Rosenborg. We get 9 points in our first go in the Champions League group stages. Oh my God, what we would give to have that type of points tally these days in the Champions League. But yeah, we end up with 9 points. It's not enough, but this is, of course, is at the time when they've introduced the dropping down into the UEFA Cup. You finished third, you dropped down. So, yeah, we were into that. Now, funny enough, it wasn't after Christmas. It was immediately just a few weeks after the group stage finished. Because at this point in time, the Champions League had 2 group phases. You went from the first round, the 32, where they were all in groups, to this round of 16 was all in groups as well. But no, we dropped down in November. We end up playing Valencia, who, as I said at the start of the show, are just fresh off of being in 2 Champions League finals back-to-back. But Russell, I know this is something that you've wanted to talk about a few times. I think you mentioned that a few times as well, but there's always time for it. Chris Sutton that night against Valencia, we lose 1-0 out in Spain. But the home game in particular, Sutton, he's like, Roberto Ayala, you're meant to be one of the best centre-backs in the world. I'm going to fucking have you. And he does have him that night. Ayala's probably still having nightmares to this day about Chris Sutton.
He's still greeting to his mom. The beauty of this, and I've got to be honest, I've never been even when I was young, someone who was at Celtic Park all the time. Right? I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I was there. No, I wasn't. But my best memories are with my dad in the living room. And God rest his soul, right? But he is what made me the Celtic fan I am, right? And our memories in that living room were unreal because he spoke probably similarly to how I do now. Do you know what I mean about football? Mm-hmm. It was always, he was thinking outside the box. And I never forget the moment you watch on the telly and the camera's just panned out slightly as we're set up a free kick. And he goes, "Oh, did you see that?" And I'm like, "No." And he goes, "Sutton has just stood." And then, of course, the camera's kind of zoomed in and there's a bit of the ref trying to talk to the 2 players thing. Nothing's really happened, or so you don't think. But my dad's clocked it and he goes, "Sutton's just backed in to Ayala." And he's took a look down, he just stood on his toes. And it's so it sounds so trivial, but Sutton's 6'4", big boy. And when you stood on your toes with his teeth gritted, that's going to hurt. So it looks quite innocuous. It looks like there's 2 players have maybe, tugged at each other's jerseys a wee bit too much. But my dad had called it before that. He'd seen it just because the camera had panned out. Now we were like, we know what's happened there. We know what's happened there. I love that moment. And that is when Dad, he coined the term, that Ayala's greeting for his mum. He went, he's greeting for his mum. And I think he was. That whole game, Sutton made, this guy had a reputation. I think at this point he had about 80 caps for Argentina.
Yeah.
He was only about 28, 29, same age as Sutton. Sutton was throwing him about that night like a rag doll. I mean it for the bottom of my heart. Chris Sutton at this point, I know we've said it enough, he was the hardest striker in European football. There was no one I would rather have as to be your go-to foil up front who could back into a defender than Sutton. No one better. No one better. Certainly wasn't Emil Heskey.
Aye, Monty also a really nice message there as well, Russell, if you want to cast your eye over that one, right? Just a big thank you for cheers, Monty. Thank you. I always appreciate it. I did see people talk about an all-nighter as well. No, we did a 3-hour show just a couple of weeks ago. That was a long shift. No, we can't do it. That was the show that we literally started in September, and by the time we finished it was October. What the hell is going on, man? Mental. That's what happened.
Party like it was 1994, Liam. You know what I mean? If we were going to be fucking up all night, you know what I mean? Bring back those good old days, big man.
God almighty. But this game against Valencia, funny enough, we were talking about it just on Monday night because my trivia question on Sutton death revolved around missed penalties. This is the first penalty shootout the Celtic have this century against Valencia. We lose 3-2 on penalties. Stan Petrov, Valhaden, and Larson missed. Larson missed a penalty. But of course, Valhaden's one's infamous because he missed it, had to retake it, and then missed it again. And we go out in penalties. But don't worry, folks, in terms of
European stuff... Can I give you a wee story about that penalty shootout, though? Very quickly.
Go for it.
Very quickly. This is what a captain is. So never ever did in your life did you see Paul Lambert take a penalty or anything like that. He gets the ball and he goes, "I'll take the first one." Again, this is my attention to detail, even at this age.
Yeah.
So when he got the ball, he was doing keepy uppies and then catching it. Keepy uppies, catching it.
I remember that now in my head. I can
when he
see that
walked
now.
down.
Yeah.
He was doing a couple of keepy uppies, catching it, and I thought, that is a guy who has his shit together and he's took authority, took responsibility, but as he's also doing it, there's a wee Jedi mind trick going on. This is how confident I am, I'll score. There's a couple of keepy uppies, catches it, and then he's walking down. A couple of keepy uppies, drops the ball, a couple of keepy uppies, catch it, puts the ball down, spanks it, top bins. That's Celtic's first penalty. See, to me, including Henrik, there's no excuse to miss after that. Because he's set the tone. He's set the tone. Why are you... Oh, Jesus, smack the microphone about. Why are you nervous, though? That's what I'd be feeling like. He's just broke it all down for you. The holding midfielders just walked up doing keepy uppies against Canizares, one of the best goalies ever. I mean, I'll see you later, mate. Spanked it home. That should make everyone...
Nobody expected Larson to miss.
I know.
No.
When Larson was a shock because up until then.
He does miss a few penalties over his career.
He does.
He does miss a few. I agree. I know you still don't expect it. No, you're right. No, you're right.
But Zaval Harin, he misses twice. He's made to take it twice, and Petrov misses, and off we pop from Europe that season. But a decent go of it. But don't worry, folks, it's put us in good stead for Europe because, of course, on next week's show, when we talk about the 02-03 season, Europe is going to feature very, very heavily because it's an adventure to say the least. So we're looking forward to that one. But anyway, for the rest of this season, the 01-02 season.
But Phil, just very quickly, do you think this is what the first example you got of? See, when you put a knife into the Celtic team, they fucking come back more pissed off and better.
Yes, they do.
I think it's quite poignant in this because this is an exit they're bitter about. And when the Celtic team's bitter, kind of come back better. So see when, as we'll get to, you get beat by a point, a goal difference by the O'Neill team, they come back and destroy you by 20.
They do.
You know what I mean? Like, this is a bear that doesn't like getting poked with a stick. And I think their frustrations at themselves as well. Not a bear,
angry bears.
I think they're guys that they've got such high expectations of themselves, such a self-worth, that I think they can't believe they've lost a penalty shootout at home. And it's like, we'll see the next time we're in Europe. We won't be feeling like this again.
I remember the night of watching that game against Valencia. So we were brilliant that night. We deserved to win more than 1-0 on the night and go through. Fucking tremendous. But it's one of them. Now, this team has been to the Champions League 2 seasons in a row.
I know.
They were decent.
And yet it's us who feel a bit better than them.
Yeah. Weird, isn't it?
I fucking love that.
I was working that day in Toronto on a photo shoot, and I left the photo shoot. So it was all, I'm not kidding you, it was all models and bikinis and stuff that were shooting that day. And I left that at the beginning when we were all getting ready and all that to go and watch the game in the pub. And then I went back and I was absolutely gutted. I came back miserable again. And then there was a guy I met at the Celtic game, a pal of mine. I said, well, I'll give a lift home after I do this shoot. I'll be about an hour. You can come and watch. And he said it was the best day of his life. It was the worst day of mine. Watching Celtic game. Penalties. He was like, I'm still gutted about the game. He's going, no, I'm good. But you're right, Steve. Hi, this is great. Just sitting watching on the footage.
That's what it does to you, mate. That's what it does to you. That's interesting, though, by Patrick.
Stuff advocate was getting the bill. Yes, a seamless link. I love it. Well done, Patrick McLaughlin. You read my mind because the next sort of segment, the next major talking point from this season, as I say, is a spanner in the works because we've obviously won the league the season before. Next be 15-point gap, 36-point swing from the 2000 season where we lost it by 21. We've went and won 3 trophies in the bounce. We're on a great run against Rangers, so we've really overcome a very, very strong Rangers side with Dick Advocaat as manager, who of course is spending money hand over fist. And this season starts no different. We go to Ibrox in the first Celtic Rangers game of the season, and we beat them 2-0 pretty comfortably. Alan Thompson's remembered for scoring a fantastic goal near the end when he weaves in from the left-hand side, beats a few defenders, and with his right foot, his weaker foot, just passes into the net. It's like a Callum McGregor finish against Rangers. It's nice we pass into the net. Stefan Klos can't get to it. Petrov scored the other one that day. The second meeting between the two teams is in November of 2001, and again we get a 2-1 victory this time. Yusufal Haran scores and Henrik Larsson scores a penalty. The game's also remembered for Michael Ball getting sent off, and as he's walking off the park, Dick Advocaat has a go at him. He basically tells Advocaat to fuck off. Essentially, you can basically read that. And Advocaat literally chases him down the tunnel and has to get held back by the other coaches. Because this was a big sign, and with hindsight being 2020, this was a sign that things were going very wrong. I was in the dressing room. It looks like
a bit of an insight into player power too.
Maybe, yeah, it could be, because this Rangers team, yeah.
See, like a player saying "fuck off," like when Advocaat
manager.
Was he not called the little dictator or something?
Yeah,
a nickname like that.
Little General or something, wasn't it?
The Little General, I think it was. That's better. That is much better.
He seems like a dictator anyway. Dictator.
For a guy who's been signed, who's only got one cap for England, he's 21 years old, feeling he's got the savvy just to go off to the manager. That's a sign 20 years later of not the norm, because they don't tell him to fuck off, but player power swing. I think you're beginning to see where really it should be Advocaat backed in that decision. Manager gets back.
Manager,
nowadays, I think that's an insight into how it changed.
Yeah, because things were definitely going wrong. I say with hindsight being 2020, because at the end of the day, Rangers have got a real strong team, and yes, I know the reasons why is all the EBTs. I know that, but again, we have to go back to that time period of you're looking at this team and you're like, they're 12 points behind us after this game. We go 12 points in front after winning the league at a canter the season before, and it's like, fucking hell, man, how the fuck can this be happening? But yeah, Michael Bossy, he gets sent off in the game. Pierre Lovenkrantz actually scores a late consolation from that game, which would become a bit of a problem for us over the next couple of years, unfortunately. But yeah, a few weeks after that victory against Rangers, Dick Advocaat gets sacked, essentially. Well, there's a few stories where it's claimed he resigned. Others say that they were going to send him upstairs to be like a director.
Yeah, I'm sure he did go up to be director of football.
It didn't last very long, though, did it?
It's a clever way again of not paying the compo. And probably that'll be how but I'm not even joking. He'll have got his compo, but that's how they'll have circumvented the situation. It'll be, there's a job up there, but as everyone knows, the director of football gets paid via EBT. So the compo package will have been his director of football salary, which only lasted. Then he was put on gardening leave probably from that. I bet you any money that's how they done that. Because to pay him off, real terms, when you look at the wages getting paid out in the players, and you look at the career Advocaat's had up to then, he's came there on a funny contract. We all know it, right?
Yeah, we don't know.
The same way he's convinced Newman not to join Real Madrid or Barcelona, whichever one it was. Right? So rather than doing that, they go, look, Dick, we are paying you off. Right? I know it's still funny calling him Dickie. Right? But like,
Richard Advocaat.
You're getting sacked. You're getting sacked. And he goes, right, okay, well, my agent's telling me you're due me a wedge of cash. And he's went, right, we know. So we're going to make you director of football officially. On paper, it's good for your CV too, because you're not being sacked. You've decided mutually to go upstairs. And now a young, fresh manager, you're going to be the tutor for them. In the meantime, you get paid via this big fucking brown envelope, which is your compensation, ya dick. That is how it's worked.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly.
But I think that's how it's worked.
Well,
never in a million years does he get the right to go, we'll put you upstairs because you're doing a shite job now. That's not happened.
They found a way to go around it because, again, with hindsight being 2020, knowing what happens to them 10 years later, because it's mostly the Dick Advocaat era that gets them in soapy bubble with the amount of stupid money he was spending. That catches up with him, but it's during this year. But of course, he goes upstairs, gets sacked, resigned, whatever he does. And what do? Do they go out and get another big coach from the continent that's managed at World Cup stuff like that? No. They go and get the Hibs manager, Alex McLeish. And I know I've got mates that are Rangers fans, and I can remember their attitude at the time. They were mortified that they went from Dick Advocaat to the Hibs manager. They couldn't fucking believe it.
What did I tell you earlier? what did I tell you earlier? It's getting the best of the rest. Signing the best that SPL has to offer.
Yeah.
McLeish was the best manager. So it looks like we're still the big giant because we're taking the best from the rest of this league. But in real terms, it is a downsizing in front of your eyes.
It is, yeah, it literally is. And again,
the optics look good because you're signing the best from your domestic league, the way a Man United would. But in Scottish terms, you're going, but really that means a 33-year-old Russell Latipi, a 34-year-old Canija, and Alex McLeish, who probably calls players thingy. You know what I mean?
Aye. But I'd say with hindsight being what it is, you look at the optics of that. There's one of your favourite words, Russell, the optics. Where it's like, we should have seen it at the time where things are pretty bad behind the scenes at Ibrox as they went from Advocat to the Hibs. They not went and got another big European coach. They've went and got Alex McLeish. So it was clearly, as you say, it was a massive downsizing at the time. I say, with hindsight being 2020, we should have seen that. It was definitely an early red flag, I think, in the build-up to what happened in 2012. I think that was an element. But see, I had mates, Rangers fans, I remember them being fucking mortified at the time that was who they were bringing in. But something really strange happens, guys. Of all the scenarios, right, that you could have foreseen if you were a Celtic fan in the summer of 2001, you've just won the treble, you're on a high, and if somebody came back in time and told you, by the way, see over the next 2 years, Rangers are going to win 5 trophies out of the 6 available, and you might think, fuck, man, they must go out and spend a shitload, and Advocat must get his shit together, and then they go, no, wait a minute, but the Hibs manager, Alex McLeish, was actually their manager. You'd be like, what? How the fuck does that happen? Because amazingly, fucking McLeish goes on an incredible run of results against us. I can't get my head around how he managed to suss Martin O'Neill because it starts with a
He didn't suss Martin O'Neill. He's the coachiest cunt in the world. He is coachy though, right? I'm not like, honestly, like normally I would be like, hold him to account. Like it's no ifs and buts. But he is coachy. He's last minute goals. He's the only guy to win 2 league titles, right? On fucking goal difference, right? On last days, right?
Yeah.
He's won 2 on goal difference. And the year in between that the year after that finished 3rd. That's how much of a diddy this guy is.
Yeah.
But he's 2 league titles. And see the league in between the 2 ones that he's won on goal difference, we won by like 20 points.
Yeah, we did.
Then, so he's won 1 on goal difference, 20 points, 1 on goal difference, last minute mayhem again. And then the one after that, he finishes 3rd. He's shite. He's an absolute plant pot. And I believe there's a lot of this, and I was kind of alluding to this on last night's show. O'Neill is channeling not his eyes on those 6 trophies, Phil. He's focused on the league, which obviously came to within a whisper of the cups. Yeah, of course we want to win them, but it's Europe.
Yeah.
O'Neill's shifting Celtic's ambition at this point, Phil. This is why these headlines shouldn't shock you too much. Eklund, what's 5 out of 6 trophies? What does it mean? 2 CIS Cups? I don't give a monkey's, mate, looking back. I generally don't care. These won't define my favourite moments in Celtic history. In that time, we were in a Seville final, a UEFA Cup final, a bona fide European final.
Yeah.
That's what I want from Celtic in the future still. Who cares?
Oh, but I agree. I'm just taking you back to that time.
No, I'm not shouting at you. I'm ranting about the stat. I'm going
of course.
It does make Alex McLeish sound like he has a hoodoo over O'Neill. Does he really? Does he really? Or did we have our eyes on bigger prizes? Were we frying bigger fish? And that is the reality. Is we were. The reality is we couldn't beat, Kilmarnock at the end of that 02-03 season, which we'll get to, because we're on our feet. Why are we on our feet? Because we played a team that wins the Champions League 12 months' time and took them to extra time in the UEFA Cup final 4 days earlier. Yeah, I'm sound of that, because I'll watch us win another 20 league titles. I won't see us do that in a European final ever again, so far as it seems. So I think it's the McLeish thing. You're right. It's mental. The stats. I'm not at you, by the way, on this. Don't take it personally. I mean,
that's fine.
No, as if, mate. I love you, mate. I'm talking about the stats. The 5 out of 6. McLeish, if you're going for a new job at Aston Villa or Birmingham City, he could pull 5 out of 6 against O'Neill. You check me. The reality is we'd moved on. We'd evolved. Our future was going to be dictated by what we do on the bigger platforms. Liam, do you agree with that?
Totally agree with that. I mean, that was that. I mean, even last year when we got pumped out of the Scottish Cup, I mean, it was all right. I was just concentrating on the league.
The league at that point.
And now that we had Champions League football back again after such a big drought, it didn't seem that bad. It seemed like, okay, let's just concentrate on the big boy stuff. And that was, I didn't feel, again, we weren't in the culture of trebles where it had to be repeated.
True.
You know, we've been through that way when we talked about Brendan Rodgers. But no, I think you still wanted to get the big stuff. And that was the league in Europe. We played, you know, O'Neill always brought a lot of young players into playing cup games. You know, he was very good at sort of promoting. I think we talked about that last week as well, Phil, about promoting youth and bringing in young guys for the
Colin
team.
Healy and Jamie Smith and all that. Aye.
Maloney.
McGinlay's
debut.
Made his debut at Ibrox.
Under O'Neill.
Aye.
So you could tell that it wasn't like, you know, setting out the best team that we had then. It was like the best team to play in that competition in that game.
Yep.
Wasn't the best team we had.
Fucking
that
spot on.
Priorities. It was just prioritizing. And that's what good managers do. They focus and they prioritize.
And because his ambition for Celtic was beyond CIS Cups, beyond Scottish Cups. Yes, he wants to win them when he's in them. Of course he does. But see, the earlier rounds, let's rotate a wee bit, because I've got eyes on a Valencia, for example. I've got eyes. I believe we can beat Juventus at home. I'm not just joking. I'm thinking we'll take them. And I think that is what O'Neill, when he took that club over, he wasn't looking at a club that was, we're 19 points behind Rangers. Turning that over will be mad. He's looking at it going, how's nobody noticed they've not been past Christmas in Europe in 25 years?
Aye, that's true.
I think O'Neill's went, it's an open fucking goal. My his rate, and by the way, like I say about Ange, I need to be honest. O'Neill has the ego as well. O'Neill has his eyes on his own CV as well. The same way I've said about Ange. There's no two ways about it. That is just how it is. So it would be unfair of me not to say that. O'Neill's looking at it going, I could elevate my career like that. Because Celtic not being in Europe past Christmas is an easy fix. Even if we finish second, it's an easy fix. And there's only one team to get on top of as well. He achieved all that. But I genuinely think he wanted to push Celtic in the European direction. And being better or just about better than your nearest rivals domestically, he wasn't going to lose sleep over that. Losing that league on goal difference, Phil, was heart-wrenching in 03, and that'll be next week. But I also believe you wouldn't swap it in the world for the road to Seville.
That's something.
There's the fucking debate.
It's a weird one. A lot of fans have got so many fond memories of that, and as Rangers fans, be the first to point out, well, we won the treble that season. How come? And it's like, you don't understand. Like that, you're right. We wouldn't swap that for anything. The memories and what we achieved, the teams we beat along the way, those moments are incredible, and they're like so rare to come across.
And we sowed those seeds this season. When we get that Valencia bitter pill to swallow, back to what we were talking about originally.
Exactly. Because again, I'm taking you back to my mindset at the time, because I hate Rangers for every fibre of my being, right? So losing to them in any way, shape, or form, I don't particularly enjoy. So at that point, young Phil was very, very bemused as to why Alex McLeish, the Hibs manager, was suddenly a problem for us, because we played them in the League Cup semi-final in February. That's the game when Bert Konterman scores that fucking goal, right? Then we play them in the league at Ibrox, but by that point we are quite a distance ahead. It was a game that they had to win. We didn't really need to. Ended up 1 each. Arthur Newman actually scores a fucking screamer in that game. Petrov scored for us. Newman got an equaliser in the second half. The final league game of the season, we're already the champions at that point. We've won it on a canter, but they get a 1-1 draw that day. Lovenkrantz again scores against us. That's the game when Thompson equalises, but in the last minute, 3 players get sent off. I'll use Rickson, Lennon, and Hartson all get sent off. There was a scrap in the goal mouth. 3 players were sent off. And then, of course, there's the infamous cup final You know, Celtic and Rangers are meeting in the Scottish Cup final. We can win the double of the Scottish League and the Scottish Cup, or they can win a double of the League Cup and the Scottish Cup. It's 2 each going into stoppage time, and then Peter fucking Lovenkrantz again scores that fucking header, and they beat us 3-2. And it's like,
I had three of my school pals round that day, right? Like to my mum and dad, just we're only about 14, 15 at the time. So around, nobody's drinking alcohol or that, although we might chance the boy who's kind of got a beard after the game, like to chance it at the Spar if we all muck in a couple of quid. But my mum's bit was strictly sober watching the game. And the first time, I promise you this is the truth, Lovenkrantz scores, I go upstairs and spew in the toilet. Never has it happened again since.
Aye?
I swear on my life I was sick.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. And I think it's because all my pals are around. I've built this up. I think there was one Rangers supporting guy and there was 4 of us, and we built it up that much. The flip in my stomach was too much. I ran to the toilet, I was confused. I was like, what's happening here? Waited.
Aye.
I didn't know the game had finished.
Oh no, the game. No, you're saying when Lovenkrantz. You mean the last minute goal or the?
No, the last minute one. And I'm going.
Actually, scored early in the game where Chris Sutton's playing centre back, and but no, the last minute. Oh, it was horrible. But that cross for Neil McCann.
Physically sick.
Oh,
I'll never forget doing that. And I was like, what's happening to me here? Which genuinely up the stairs was sick. It was horrible, man.
Aye, it's and Patrick was saying I was at that cup final. Raging wasn't the word. Lubo never got. Lubo wasn't even with us. We mentioned this on the Lubo show we did. He transferred just before the cup final because he had to join for pre-season training. He went out to Japan to play under Joseph Venglos. Lubo actually left before the season ended, like a few days before this cup final. He never is. Aye. Was he went out to join Joseph Venglos, but Lubo had just left. But yeah, that was a sickening, as I say.
But one other thing about that season as well with Lubo, Lubo was very much first half of that season. So it's Larson, Sutty, and it's Lubo. Second half of the season is your Larson, Sutton, Hartson.
Yeah.
That was the evolution, right? That was the evolution. No way does Martin let Lubo leave if he's still as big a part of the team as what he was in the first half of the season. Because the first half of the season, we were talking about that Thunderbolt strike. He was a joke. Like he was a joke.
Aye.
But I think it's changing, and that's just what happens at teams. It's always a moving part. The football team you support, nothing stands still ever. You know, this 3-year project stuff. This team will be better in 3 years. That team will not be the same team in 3 years. It's always moving. It's always evolving. That's not. I don't know where folk get that idea from. You know what I mean? That a starting 11 is going to be the same for 3 years.
Aye, it's going to change.
And there's a brilliant example. If Lubo can be allowed to leave before a cup final, man, fuck me. Some of the boys that we think they're going to be there in 3 years' time out of loyalty.
By the show, Ball's asked a quick question about he was at the semi-final of the League Cup that year, the one when Conterman scores, and says there was a lot of empty seats that night. Any reason you think why? If I remember right, this is also at the time when the League Cup semi-finals were played on midweek games, which would usually be in the dead of winter in January or February. So it's probably just a case of people not coming out for it because they moved it to the weekends in early 2010. Remember the 2010s? They moved it to the weekends for the semi-finals for the League Cup, but it used to be a midweek thing.
But to be fair, looking at the Champions League games, you know, there's always the front 3 rows need to be clear for some reason.
Yes, I know why.
Go on, tell me why.
I used to, when I first got my season ticket in 2007, I sat in the second row of the Jock Stein stand right down at the front.
Right, okay.
When UEFA come to town, they erect their own advertising boards. They put their own ones up where, like, at the time, would be like Amstel beer and PlayStation stuff like that. And they are higher than the ones that we have at the SPL level. So if you're down in the first, second, or third row, you cannot see. So you get relocated in the lower Jock Stein and the lower Lisbon Lions stand. I did myself.
But with that in mind, I get that bit. But the Porto game, if you watch it, look how many of row 4, row 5 are still empty as well.
Aye, so it's going even further back. But that's what it's about. It's advertising boards.
It's not the advertising thing. I'm talking about strategically.
Okay.
So that's what I'm going. Has the demand... I think the demand for tickets now is genuinely higher than it's ever been. I think there's an appetite for youngsters to go to the game. I think there's an ultra appetite right now that goes on. You know, a demand to be an ultra right now, to be part of the, whether it be the Green Brigade or whether it just be part of something, have an identity, feel like, I think right now we live in a culture, right, where being an individual is very, very difficult. I mean, I look at the man below me right now, right? He fucking stands out because he is who he is.
Yeah.
You don't get Liam Greenlaws in the world right now because people feel strong when they're part of a pack, right? And this isn't a disrespectful thing, by the way, but I think there's a hotter demand for Celtic tickets now than there ever has been, because people want that. They want that pile-on tweet where they could slag someone off and everyone likes their one that's doing it. They want that group, that feeling of culture by all wearing black, and you're the guy who's bought the green flare, who's near you, and you might get someone's took a photo of you and you're on Twitter, you can close in and go, that's me and you. I think there's a real fear now of being unique, originality. So I think the demand, which is funny because I've always felt in my going to Celtic life, I always felt the Celtic support was kind of unique. I always felt like he fucking looks arty. He doesn't look like the normal guy who go to a football game, the stereotype that we go. But now I think, to be honest with you, there'll be no spare seats at the likes of the League Cup, Sean Barlow's fight, because they all need to do it. They all need to do it for street cred as well. Not just, and don't get me wrong, a love of the team as well. I'm not disputing that aspect, by the way. That sounds really harsh. But I definitely think a huge part of it is a feeling of belonging, feeling like you need to be involved. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? I think
it does.
In 2001,
Adidas is part of that culture as well. When you switch over to a brand like Adidas, I mean, you're now as well as the sport world. So a lot of those people that probably wouldn't wear Celtic gear before are now wearing Celtic gear because it's Adidas. I mean, that's where Snoop Dogg's and all that favorite, really, you know, I mean, like to kit and stuff, but I think there's something about that as well that creates a culture around it. So you see your pals show up with Celtic stuff on now more and more, or, you know, I'm talking abroad. No, I don't know if it's still the same in Glasgow. But I think that adds to the culture as well too, whereas you can see there's a big, Celtic just seems to be more in the news and all that and more in the culture. It's a cultural thing as well as a football thing now. You know, so that's why you're getting people, because more people want a voice, and we're an alternative voice. Everybody loves a rebel.
That's true,
especially when it's in a group format, mate. See, when you know that you're given a voice that 10 folk, 15 folk, 2,000 folk share, gives you that wee fucking, you know what I mean? If you go against the grain these days, people are afraid to do that, you know? People are afraid to do that. So imagine thinking you can go to a cauldron of 60,000 people all singing for the same hymn sheet, or as Charlie Nicholas would say, the same spreadsheet. Yeah, that's coming.
Well, spreadsheets are very much in vogue nowadays when it comes to watching your football. Apparently, you need to record the things on a spreadsheet.
Well, that's true. That is true. But I think there's a huge comfort blanket thing with that, Liam, that a sense of belonging. I'll be honest. See if Celtic could tomorrow say they could just, you know, build on that main stand, not the main stand down. Say it could be done in 2 weeks. Obviously, that's impossible, right? Just say they could. The ground capacity goes up to 75,000. Equals Man U's 76,000, whatever Man U's is. We sell the season tickets out. Season tickets are what? Got to be what, 90%? So it'd be like 70,000 season tickets. Celtic sell them out now. Guaranteed. I'm in no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I'm in no doubt.
That's good. That's good management. I mean, that's the way American, you know, sports teams do it. You build the stadium. If we build it, they will come. You know, you set up the expectations. And again, it's not all season tickets. You make money on the concessions and all that stuff that goes around. I hear Celtic just opened a new bar as well in the stadium.
They did,
Belgium. That's the stuff Celtic should be doing. You know, like make it more of an experience. I'm not trying to sound all American here, but you know what I mean? Make it more stuff.
Liam, how funny is it that they did that? It looks like, I'm like, wow, that's a place I want to go to. Celtic don't announce it.
And
it's almost like it's almost like they don't want to accept. All right, fine, we've listened, we've done what you've told you. It's like, well, you have. Just shut up and embrace it. Why have they not announced that? That's legal photos you've seen, mate. It's not been a Celtic official announcement at any point on that.
Crazy.
I find that bizarre. And there should be them dotted. By the way, there is the space to do that, and not just there.
Aye.
There is way more room to do that around that stadium. Way
It's
more
just
room.
being smart, and go back to our board is, you can see the cracks in the board at this time as well with Martin O'Neill too, right? Of what was going to come as well, that he was going to have contact with them as well. And it's nice to see that they're still making mistakes, like fucking rookie stuff, and yet we're told we've got the best people we possibly can on this board, who we've had for ages, and then something as stupid as not being able to do the launch of a giant entertainment site within your complex. It's mental,
Chris,
so hopefully they will do it.
I mean, Chris thinks that we've only got 52,000 now. 52,000 is the maximum amount we're allowed just now. That's the reason.
A certain percentage needs to be general sale. Yeah.
Aye, like we've got a waiting list. I can jump to give you an example. My brother is on the waiting list and was declined this year. So it's not just we've got 52,000. Jonathan will tell you he's on the waiting list. He can't get one, and that is because they sell out. So I get what you're saying, it's only 52,000.
I've got a funny one for you. I must have jumped onto the waiting list at the right time. I remember when my dad suggested about us getting season tickets in the 07 08 season. So demand must have been low in Strachan's era, because I've literally laughed at my dad and went, what about the waiting list? And no, he managed to get them right away, but that was during Strachan's era. So it's happy the season tickets since 07 08.
But
originally sat. But nowadays, it's like...
I think there's a bigger demand. I think there's a bigger demand of what there was even under Martin O'Neill. I think when you look at when Martin O'Neill was unveiled, you look at it and he was outside the ground. When Brendan Rodgers was unveiled, it had to be in the stadium.
Yeah.
Because there was 13,000 there for that. And for me, both of them tickled my balls the same way, to be honest. I think both are huge, Both are huge. That's the best way to describe it, isn't it?
That's a good way to describe it.
I'm just being honest.
Yeah, I know.
But I think if you'd put Martin O'Neill into the modern culture day, I think that would have been 15,000, 20,000 in the stadium. I just think there's more of a need now to be part of it. But I also will tell you this. It was O'Neill that turned Celtic Park into the fortress it is. See, you can have as many fans in it these days, guys, as you want. But see, when it's this, look at Modric. See, under Martin O'Neill, we channeled his energy. Yeah. I think folk have forgotten this. We used to look at team and be like, who's that? Seedorf. Boo! And everyone was hostile. Everyone was charging. And I genuinely think the big difference now is the players who join Celtic, they want to do the Champions League stuff, right? And see what it does to us. See when you're like, I watch it on the telly, obviously, Phil, you're there. See that when you just are balling, right? You're just shouting yes during the Champions League theme. And it keeps intensifying, by the way. Rangers tried to do it for an extra verse. I don't know if you've seen that midweek. It was embarrassing.
No way.
I promise. They tried to stretch out. It just got weird. Like they didn't even time it right at that. It was not like what it is at Celtic. Anyway, that's a different story.
Dear me.
But I think the players felt that aggression. See now, I think there's players nodding, even in our team going, this is brilliant. This is our team. I think the Celtic players went, like you're turning me into a maniac here. I think that's how it was. I don't know. And I still think we're trying to drive that energy. I just wish the modern day guy in his 20s that played for Celtic would start feeling that, I don't know, eye of the tiger thing. Like, that's what the fans are trying to convey to you when they do that. Yeah, Liam. They're not trying to, I nearly called you Leon, which would have been Liam combined with Lion. But, like, do you know where I'm coming from? I think at times, like, they're going, oh, thank you, guys. And I'm like, no, it's about going, we're trying to tell you to go, do the same to that team and you win.
Well, I was disappointed at one time when I heard last year that we're talking about the players, about Ange going in and talking to the players, and he says, well, he doesn't really do that. No, Ange doesn't really get. He says, well, I've told him everything I need before the thing. I don't really need to go in. Whereas I think what O'Neill had is Martin O'Neill was able to go in there, and like you were saying against Valencia with Ayala, he's sitting there. And I'm saying this because I just watched a thing on Brian Clough recently.
Yes.
Player something that talks about him. He talks about Stuart Pearce. He says, Stuart, he was shit for England on the weekend. You're going to be shit for, and you could see O'Neill doing that with Sutton going, oh, that Ayala looks a big boy. He's bossing everybody. Is he going to boss you about, Chris? And
I'll tell you, I'll give you one, Liam. I'll give you one. So in Lennon's book, right, he goes, I get pulled into the manager's room, and everyone thinks I'm his pet. He goes, he hates me more than everyone else. He signed me 3 times. He goes, so he sits me down and he goes, why'd you do it? Why'd you do it? Why'd you do it? He's like, why did I do what? He goes, why'd you dye your fucking hair that colour? And Lennon goes, so Lennon goes, oh, because I want to be different. He goes, different. You want to be different. Try score a goal on Saturday. That's too good.
That's what I mean. I think
the guy who scores, the guy who gets signed by him 3 times, and Lennon's like, well, you think he likes me? No, he hates me. He signs me because he hates me.
That's amazing. Oh my God.
That's different. Be fucking different.
Fucking awesome.
Score a goal on Saturday. I think that is because Lennon, I think, scored. I don't even know if he got double figures in 7 years of Celtic. I don't think he got 10. You want to be different.
Wow.
Different. Aye. Different, you bastard. How different you bastard. But again, we're going off piste, but I just think
that is what you get on the bus, because that whole segue came from Russell asking, why are the rows in the front of the Jock Stein and the Lisbon Live stand empty on a European? That's what that all came from. How we got to Neil Lennon dyeing his hair blonde, I do not know. But that's how the magical mystery tour that this bus takes, somehow we got there. But anyway, back on track just quickly. We obviously have dealt with the Rangers fight, so McLeish's came in. He seems to be getting a tune out of them, but we'll deal with that. Obviously, we finally do get a victory over McLeish's Rangers next season. But anyway, we'll deal with that when we get to next week's show. So basically, sort of final conclusions really on the season. For the first time, and this was staggering to me, since 1981 and 1982, Celtic win back-to-back titles. Unbelievable, because Celtic did win a few titles through the 80s, but back-to-back ones was 81 and then 82. So the 2001, 2002, 20 years apart. Astounding. But yeah, we're champions again. We set a record winning the league by we had 103 points by the end, which was the record time. And I believe Brendan's 106 and the Invincible treble season that passed it, but it was a fucking astounding season in terms of just we blew away the competition in the league. Obviously, in the Champions League, we had a good go of it, and in Europe, we'll be dealing more with Europe in the next episode. It put us in good stead for it. But some big wins along the way, going to places like Easter Road, Fir Park, East End Park, Tynecastle, putting like 4 and 5 goals past teams. Then we didn't actually lose any league games to Rangers. We're actually on a 6 league game unbeaten run against them at this point. So then we're thoroughly deserved winners. Henrik Larsson scored 29 league goals. John Hartson racked up 19. Surprisingly, Chris Sutton
John Hartson.
4 league goals. John Hartson. 19.
No, John, come here, John. John, come here. Get warmed up. You're coming off.
But guys, do you
that
realize
is a fact though? That's what he said to him. John Hartson's playing. He started and he goes, "Come here, get warmed up." John Hartson's like, "What?" He goes, "You're coming off." That's fucking unbelievable.
Oh my God. Well, you also know as well an interesting fact that this season, I mentioned a second ago about Brendan's 106 season, the Invincible treble one. We'll see this season we were 1 league game away from an Invincible league season. till Aberdeen beat us at Pittodrie in December. I don't know if you remember this game, but John Hartson gave away a penalty at a corner. I think it was for a handball. But Aberdeen's celebrations after the game, they were probably doing like conga lines and stuff like that around the park. They were so delighted when they beat us 2-0. It's the only league defeat we have all season. Then, funny enough, a couple of years later, the 03-04 season, we're romping towards the title. We're undefeated up until March.
Just repeat that. We lost one game in the 01-02 season.
Yeah, to Aberdeen at Pittodrie.
How under-celebrated is that?
Well,
we just spoke about the quality of the league at the start of this show.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get it real, get it right here. That is ridiculous. And that is that 01-02 league season.
Yeah.
Is it? I think it's just O'Neill's second title. It was just O'Neill's one defeat. That's phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah. But what I was going to say though about Aberdeen, like they beat us that season, right? 03-04 season, a couple of years later, we're on track for an undefeated season again, because an undefeated season is unheard of. And 03-04 is also the same year that Arsenal had an undefeated league season in England, but we're on course for that. We get to the tail end of March, and Aberdeen come to Glasgow and beat us to give us our first league defeat of the season. Then in Neil Lennon's final season, in his first stint as Celtic manager, 2013-14, we're blowing everybody away. We get to the end of February, start of March. We're undefeated. And Aberdeen, again, are the first team to beat us that season. And that season, when we lost one league game, fucking Aberdeen, they keep coming along and ruin it. But, of course, we eventually did get our undefeated season. But, yeah, for a good while, Aberdeen were always there to just spoil the party. You know, we could have had many undefeated seasons during this century. But, unfortunately, Aberdeen kept on coming and ruining it for us. But yes, in the end, Larson gets 29 goals, Hartson 19. Sutton only scored 4 league goals all season, but of course he had some memories. But yeah.
I mean, I've obviously watched the homework you've sent us, Phil. The videos are unreal.
Yeah.
There's a game at Hibs. You know the rocket we were talking about, Lubo's goal?
Yep.
See the other two. So we got 3-0 up inside the first 20 minutes. The other two are scored by Sutton. I mean, it is just why he's such a player. It's Soze he's up against, and like the ball, see when the ball goes over the top, there's two of them, it's not even like it's close. He's just out the road you, and it's not like he's unfair either. It's just like, I don't know, it's like a high school player playing against a playground, like a primary school player in the playground.
Yeah,
just fucking out the road you. The 4-1, and then there's another away day. I'm just going to quickly touch on this, right? Remember, there's a narrative that we play the best football I've ever seen in my life, right? And all this bullshit. And Martin O'Neill's team was just direct and all this nonsense. There's a moment against Dundee away, and it's all there on YouTube, and it's worth it, by the way. See the trip. It's so worth it. Just go on it. That playlist that Phil said of the 01-02 season, it's so good.
Yeah.
But at one point, the ball's played for, I think it's Alan Thompson. Lennon runs like a dummy, like Bergkamp would be proud of. But then Larson sees his dummies it himself. So it's like the commentators going, a double dummy. I don't even know what this is now. And it's Lennon did an overlap and run the left wing. You're going, and it's Sutton who takes it, gathers it, gives it to Lambert, who plays this ball in behind a fullback with the outside of his boot. And I'm going, you thought this team couldn't play football? See if that had turned out a goal, which sadly didn't. You'd be talking about that for hours. Don't be fooled by us being all this, entertaining right now. It's brilliant. But the reason we go back to the sound that klaxon, Phil. Sound that klaxon.
Brand, there you go.
But the reason we go back to that klaxon is because they weren't just bullies. They weren't. They were footballers. They had a team that could do both. I don't understand if folk don't get it. No. And as for adapting, we were going to speak about this, Liam, because I know this was a hot talking point for you, big boy. I know you're texting right now. Hey, don't worry, mate. Send that text.
I've got work.
I know, mate. No, I know. But very quickly. Ange doesn't change his style in Europe. It's to be applauded, right? But it's not exactly working. Martin O'Neill never changed his style in Europe. But the difference was 3-5-2. Who else played that in Europe then? Nobody. The football Ange is playing, the formation, that's what all the best teams do. So we've got lesser players against better players doing the same thing. Martin O'Neill was doing 3-5-2, which I can't think of any other team probably in the whole out of the 32 Champions League clubs were playing 3-5-2. That's why him sticking to his guns was a bit different. And by the way, just as bold.
Because you're playing all the best players on your team are on the park at the right time.
True.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we are looking a wee bit naive at this point, because again, we've been screaming out for big, chaos in a couple of games where I think he could really do, help us improve. And I think having maybe Chaos and Kyogo on at the same time might get Kyogo out of that slump.
With Chaos getting to the 01-02 Martin O'Neill squad.
I think he'd be a Martin O'Neill player.
Me too. Me too. I totally agree. I totally agree.
He'd definitely be an O'Neill player.
I think he is an O'Neill player. I think he's an O'Neill player in an squad.
Well, tell you what, you'll see it as well, because you could probably O'Neill would find a place for him in the back if he couldn't find a place for him.
Oh, aye, that's true. Aye.
Look at Sutton, right? And I remember Sutton looked great when he played centre back.
I remember centre midfield at times as well.
Yeah, he did.
And by the way, see, just about that accommodate. Remember we spoke last week about Bobby Petr. Look how many games this season Bobby Petr still starts and Thompson starts one in. Petro.
Oh,
Petro's maybe the one. Petro's maybe the one on the bench. But it's going. These guys are good enough. Get your best players involved. If Petr's the boy in form, but Thompson's in form, I'll find a way to play them both. I think, but I love that by Liam. Giakoumakis is a Martin O'Neill player. That's the headline.
Yeah. Oh, he's definitely got that attitude that would fit into that team.
Aye.
Even when he was talking about that goal that he, the one that he scored last weekend there in the last minute, like visualising that and saying it, just calling it out in that. He also said as well when he came back for his injury, judge me now. And then he went on to score all these cracking goals. Judge me now. I mean,
judge me now. I'm healthy. Remember he kept saying, he goes, I'm healthy. I'm like, healthy. Most folks say I'm injury free. He's like, I'm healthy now. I'm healthy. I'm like, oh. But I did he not say, Liam, was it last week? He goes, I knew that when the ball's on that pitch, I've already envisaged me scoring the goal. I believe him. But I think he fits in that squad. And I'm not saying he's above the other two guys. What I'm saying is, if O'Neill's not signed a Sutton or a Hartson, had it been a Giakoumakis, he rolls in. It's seamless. He fits the mold for what O'Neill was looking for, does he not?
It's a team that had swagger, and that boy's got swagger. And I think Martin O'Neill created an environment where those sort of people, where that sort of masculinity, that sort of empowerment, and even the banter and the ribbon and all
that as well.
That was a tough school, that dressing room. And so he created that environment. And so tough, positive people, they flourish in that environment. And that's why I'm always, I like players that play like that for Celtic. I want players like that. I want everybody to have a bit of swagger. I want when they're standing in the tunnel and you're looking at each other and go, we've got the best 11 that we can possibly do right now. Nobody's sitting on that bench right now. The guys that are going to do it, the guys right here. And going out there and like, certain players in Celtic, I don't think should be playing, but like Greg Taylor.
I think there's.
Would Greg Taylor be a Martin O'Neill player?
I think for his wee bit. I think for the work rate, I think he'd be behind Bobby Petr. But I think he'd be.
I think Greg Taylor's wee boots would be hanging up in Martin O'Neill's mirror in the morning.
But you know what? I think it's all about the challenge ahead and how people. I think it wasn't always about in that squad your level of ability, because I think you've got to flip it as well and go, Eyal Berkovic undeniably was good enough football-wise to be in a Martin O'Neill team. Martin O'Neill just looks at me and goes, can you handle this? No. Can you handle? And if you can't, bolt. I think if we guy like Greg Taylor, and I appreciate what you say about his footballing ability, but I think if Greg Taylor just keeps poking Martin O'Neill in the chest going, aye, I can. Martin O'Neill will go, fine, I'm having him. I like it. On you go. Right? Because, see, you've got to have the streak. And I think right now, the football's been changed, right? Massively, guys. Right? See, in terms of even the disparity we're talking about in Europe, the Celtic were up against there. And what the guys like, even Del Piero, he was also a maverick. He wasn't the guy who did 1,000,000 kilometers a game, right? He was just a brilliant footballer. See, now they're all athletes. They all do, the amount of kilometers a game that Nakamura would probably shudder, right? And go, that's Telfer's job. That's Cadis's job. You know what I mean? Matt Wilson, where are you? That it's changed now. I think there's a big difference between trying to be able to play an intensive game, which is all about being fit, really, in the press, and talent. I think there's enough talent in our modern day squad to be able to do more than just press all the time. Do you know what I mean? But that's Ange's gift to decide that if he wants. Yeah. I think O'Neill got the balance right, though. He went with aggression and ability. Sorry, Phil, we fucking ran way over.
It's all right. So basically, to sum up the end of the season, we won the league by 18 points. We've won it on a canter. Yeah, we didn't win the two cups. Was that?
What season have we been talking about now? I mean, Liam.
So yeah, but yeah, we won the league. Some fans, on paper you may look at it and go, we could have been more. But I think Russell summed up well earlier. This Celtic team probably had bigger ambitions. But for the hacks out there that want to write a headline about how McLeish's got a new assistant, Rangers are on the comeback trail. They obviously won their 2 trophies. That looks good for them. But at the end of the day, we had bigger ambitions, and we will see those bigger ambitions in the 02-03 season when we do that next week. But that wraps up the 2001-2002 season. It's been another long one, guys. It's been another adventure on Martin O'Neill month. But we must finish on trivia. Russell said earlier on he reckons he's got all 7 answers. I will recap the question just for the benefit. I will recap the question for the benefit of anyone that came in late. So I said Celtic signed Bobo Balde this season from Toulouse FC. However, can you name all the other first-team players Celtic have directly signed from a French football club?
And one shot, because I included Bobo.
You want them chronologically?
Go for it. Go for it, man. However you want to deliver the answers.
I'll do the first one then. First one, Stefan Mahe.
Got it.
Stefan Mahe's correct. He's not the first one. There's one before that.
Was there one before that?
There's one before that.
That is going to be the problem, signing.
That's the
problem one. Because I've got Lubo.
Lubo was signed for a German team, MSV Duisburg.
That's right, because we did the Lubo show.
Lubo played many of his years in France, playing for Saint-Étienne and Bastia. Okay. But he transferred to MSV Duisburg in Germany just before he joined us. He was only there for a short time.
Eddie?
What about
Edwards? Yeah, French Eddie. Yeah, definitely.
Eddie?
Yeah.
I didn't have Eddie reply.
Aye, French Eddie.
Okay, of course. Eddie, Mahe, James.
Maurice Jens is correct. Yes, indeed.
James. Nguemo.
No.
Christopher Julian,
yes. Toulouse, same team as Balde. Yeah.
And Nguemo's not?
No, not according to
Where's Nguemo signed from?
Have we looked for now?
He was on loan from a French team, mate.
Was he?
Laundry Nguemo. Come on. VAR.
Aye. Right. Oh, interesting. Okay, that's an interesting one. Okay, it's the same season as right. Okay, got it.
Oh, I didn't know the first one. Stefan Bon.
Well, I said in the question, first team players. Stefan Bonny never actually played a game for us. That's why I was like, leave him out because he never even played a game. There's a goalkeeper that was signed as well under Lennon. Never played a game. I never played a game for us. So I was like, I just said first team players to try.
What a shout though, Stefan Bonny.
Stefan Bonny, under John Barnes. That never played a game for us.
So in Nguemo though, he is French club, isn't it?
Yeah. I need to just double check something because I might have looked along the line incorrectly here. So 2 ticks.
Liam, we're going to VAR, mate. This is VAR under Phil McGinlay. This is exciting. This is what we're in for the rest of our life.
No. It's there's 2 then from that same club. So Landry and Guemo is one of them as well.
One.
Yes, but there's another one from the same club which might catch you out. Okay.
That's okay, mate. That's
because
okay.
on the website that I looked
right.
at, there's 2 from the exact same club that we've signed.
Phil,
and it was
as long as I got one right, I'm happy. So Lubo, I've got Lubo to score out, mate. So I'm pretty embarrassed there. Bobo Baldi, obviously.
Obviously, yeah.
All right.
I've got another one that's interesting, Liam.
Who's that?
I've got the guy who scored in the Scottish Cup final, Jean-Joël Perrier-Doumbé.
That's correct. Stade Rennes.
Yes!
That's right. Okay.
How many to go?
You need to get 1, 2 more to go. Yeah, 2 more. It's the 2 that I thought would be the trickiest one, yeah.
Oh, you fucker.
You'll understand why the Landry and Guemo one confused me. You'll understand when I tell you all the answers. You'll get it.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I'm having a look in the comments because I feel like this is one that Patrick McLaughlin or Paolo would know. No, I'm having a wee look. I feel like this is a story that they would know. No.
But there's 2 more.
There's 2 more. I say once you hear the answers, you'll understand why Nguemo threw me off.
I hate this feeling when I'm like, I'm gonna be pissed off.
I'll tell you the era. I'll tell you the era that one of them's from. The 90s.
Yep, I knew it. I knew that already.
Oh, before Mahi.
Before Mahi.
I think so. Aye. Oh, I fucking hate this feeling so much.
It wasn't Mo Johnson. He went somewhere else.
No, the bastards.
Mo Johnson came up in the comments about non-fire. That obviously didn't happen for obvious reasons.
It didn't happen.
People, do you know something? People are saying in the comments, this isn't the answer that I'm looking for just now, but some people have got one right and they've got it sort of inadvertently right. Put it that way.
So it's not a French player then,
Tommy,
is it?
it's a Tommy Burns signing.
It is not a Tommy Burns signing. It's pre-Tommy Burns.
Pre-Tommy Burns?
Lou McCarry.
It might have been McCarry or Brady.
Oh! Cascarino.
The Marseille one? Is it Marseille?
I don't care where he came from. Someone came from France. I don't give a shit who team. Cascarino came from France.
Right.
Am I right?
No, he signed for Aston Villa. Cascarino signed for Aston Villa.
There's Tommy Coyne. Oh my God, if it's not Tommy Cascarino.
Eric Black.
I just looked at No.
Oh, the Lou McCurry. Oh, no.
Do you want me to tell you this one? Because this one is a real hard one. Okay.
Go on. Give me
He's not a Frenchman, put it that way. He's not a French player. Right?
I know that.
His initials are RV.
Rudy Vata.
Rudy Vata was playing for Albania against France in an international game, and he and some of his teammates walked off the park and sought asylum in France to get away from war-torn Albania. He then ended up playing for lower league French teams like Tours FC, the team we signed him from. We also played for Le Mans FC. We signed him from Tours FC, a French league team. Rudy Vata is one of the answers. Yeah.
Remember the free kick that made Gorham look daft?
Yeah. One that bent round the wall.
When Hampden was our home.
It was, aye.
I was at home game. I remember always, my dad told me, it was like homework football became back then. You remember a wall chart, Liam?
Aye.
A wall chart, and you had to put the scores. You had to pay a wall chart. You'd get for the paper, Phil, right? You would know. You're the same. You're older than me. You put the wall chart up, and it would be. I remember the first time I ever did that was the Hampden season. Rudy Vata, right? Go on. One
Oh,
more.
The final one is from the
Let them go.
Go.
Is it Stanislav Varga?
No, Stanislav Varga was a free transfer. So he's got to be signed directly from said French team, but Varga was a free transfer from
Era.
early 2010s or late 2000s.
It's that winger then. It's that silly winger.
Silly winger. Give me any silly winger.
No, there's plenty of silly. Oh, I know who it is.
All right, go for it.
God.
Is it?
I could picture Neil Lennon signed him. Please tell me I'm right.
No,
Tony Mowbray signed him.
Tony Mowbray signed him.
Yes.
Mana. No, Fortune.
Yes, Marc-Antoine Fortuny.
No,
he was
came from West Brom.
He was on loan at West Bromwich Albion for the year that Mowbray was there. He was a player for AS Nancy, the same team that we signed Landry Nguemo off of as well. I couldn't believe it when I read it. He played for West Brom for that year, the 2009-2010 season, but he wasn't a West Brom player. He's an AS Nancy player who was signed from Nancy for $3.5 million, but Mowbray worked with him for that year, so he was a loan player. But we actually signed him from Nancy. It's a bit like when we signed Willow Flood, where he wasn't actually a Dundee United player, he was a Cardiff City player. It was a player that was on loan. So it's like that type of thing, one of the type of deals.
No.
I was amazed when I was going through, but that's also the thing. Landry Nguemo also came from
Mowbray was West Brom manager.
He was indeed.
So it was like he was bringing up his play, which can I be honest? I had no issue with that when he paid 3.8 million, which again showed the downsizing at Celtic at the time. Because 3.8 million at that time was getting made out to be Mowbray splashed out in a player. I'm like,
loads of people in the chat were saying Fortuny, but I think it was they were inadvertently getting. Maybe they genuinely knew, but when I was going through the history, I had the idea in my head he came from West Brom, so I couldn't believe it when I read the transfers that season. But also, Nguemo also came from AS Nancy, so I've seen the two rows with the same team. I've been like, wait a minute.
I knew Nguemo was
but
right.
I turned out he was on loan at West Brom for a year, and then he was actually a non-sport. So I actually signed him from a French team. So that's one that is a wee snidey one. But the Rudy Vata one's quite an interesting story.
To be was the one I'd written down, and then I remembered he joined from Sheffield United.
Sheffield United, aye.
But the proudest I am is Jean-Joël Perrier-Doumbé.
Well done on that one, mate. I started reading.
That is top banana stuff.
Good stuff, mate. Well done, mate. Well done.
Let's Liam go though, because he's got work.
Yeah, Liam's got to go, man. Sorry, Liam, mate. It's another 3-hour show. Sorry, man.
I'm going to the pub. That's my phone going. I love you.
Mate, that is work. Listen, don't the Boozers as much work, because you will do something in that pub. You will meet someone that could take you to that next creative level that you need to go to. It's a wonderful place, the pub. The pub is the best place to be in the world. I'm just jealous.
My dad used to say that to me as well. Like, I wanted to go out and things and that. Dad says, you're not going to meet anybody sitting in the house.
The pub's the best place to meet people in the world. I mean that. I know better than anyone. I know that better than anyone. I ran one. I'm telling you, it's the best place to go. So, Liam, go enjoy your pints at the pub. Phil Mcginlay, best host in the world. That was quality tonight.
Yes, indeed. Anything else you need to tell the viewers about what's coming up? Or... Post-match pitch tomorrow and BNP.
6:30. Terry hopefully will be there. Hopefully there'll be a couple of others. Oh, who cares? As long as Celtic win tomorrow.
Exactly.
Sunday, the Kaiser comes on. I'll deal with him on one. I'm ready to rein him in. If he wants to be part of Celtic podcast, then he will either dance to the tune that we play, or he can play his own tune, and I might like it. that'll be the interesting part of that. But Kaiser supported the channel so much that I look forward to bringing him on, because I think he can work with us because we're sound. Yeah, he's sound, and it'll happen. And then after that, it's the usual week, Phil. With the Monday Club and all that good stuff.
Do it all again, mate. So yeah, that has been a 0102 season, and of course Martin and Neil Munn of Sound at Claxon, and we will be back next week for the 2002-2003 season. The small matter of the road to Seville will be getting discussed. So yeah, we're out of here. Thanks for sticking with us to the very end. It's been a 3-hour show, so thanks a lot, everybody, and we shall catch you all later.
Thanks.
Bye.
Some of his comments about me deliberately cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now. And you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.